Hello, and welcome to this first edition of the AION Roundtable. Working title. I don't have a name for this yet, so deal with it. Before I introduce the guest, today's topic will be mainly focused around Cleric, the way it has evolved over time on this game, which there's a lot to unpack here. I think we can agree with that. We're gonna cover everything from the different patches that has been making Cleric grow over time, and then our individual builds, what we think about the current state of Cleric, what we want to see come to the game for Cleric and to the game in general. And yeah, now with further ado, let's introduce our guest, starting with Kegi. Take it away.
Hello. I'm Kegi. I'm an old AION content creator. People probably know me better from the AION community discords. I created the very first AION discord back when Discord wasn't even popular yet, and now I'm also running the AION 2 community discord. Basically, I try to follow the game always where it's going. When I wasn't actively playing the game, it's kind of same for AION 2 right now. AION 1 was always my main game, and I played it around like 10 years, and I've always been Cleric, so Cleric is really special class for me.
Indeed. I do remember the AION days, and we will be talking about that as well in just a little bit, because we will also be talking about not just Cleric in AION 2, but also the broad topic of, support classes amongst the different MMOs we played and how we feel about Cleric in this game in comparison to these. But yeah, so Moca, take it away.
Hello, I'm Moca. It's my first time playing AION, but I've been a healer for a while. I was playing FF14 for a couple of years, and I was an Astro main.
Alright, Temp0z.
I used to play WoW, then I think I went on to AION and I played the Cleric then, but that was a long time ago, so I can't remember AION 1 about. But I kind of like the Abyss War, I guess. So that's why I played AION 2.
Alright, Understandable. We'll cover more about the previous MMOs and stuff we played in just a moment, but yeah, thank you. For anybody wondering why this cast in specific, I've been talking about this thing for like a little bit. I really wanted to get the right people with like a pretty wide spread of people from the more casual side to the more hardcore side to make sure that we actually cover a wide range of opinions about both the game and the class itself, right? So Kegi is a bit more on the casual side. I think you can agree with that.
Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah, Kegi kind of dabbles with multiple different classes in the game, but being a Cleric main in AION 1, he obviously has a pretty deep interest into AION 2 Cleric as well. Moca is more of the mid-core gamer, the respectful like group Cleric that does her best. Temp0z is I guess what most Taiwanese and Chinese player would maybe reference as a big brother. I think that's fair enough, right?
Yeah.
For my side, I'm for anybody that doesn't necessarily follow me, I'm more on the hardcore side, but I don't really spend anything in the game. So yeah. But anyways, let's start with our first topic. So we already sort of touched on it a little bit with the introduction, but we're gonna introduce basically our like previous experience with like previous MMOs, and more specifically on the support side of things. So I guess I'll get started with myself. For me, so again, for people that don't necessarily know me, so I've been playing MMOs for about, God, it's been 20 years now. It's been even more than 20 years. Holy shit, I'm old. I've always been kind of drawn to support, not necessarily because it's always my favorite class to play, but because I think that's something that other support players can probably identify to. But whenever you play an MMO, it's always difficult to find support players to run stuff, and you always get stuck in situations where you end up waiting for support players to show up. So I initially wasn't necessarily a support player, but I kind of gravitated towards it because at the end of the day, if you want a job done, it's just always better to do it yourself. So I played support on Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14, AION, and Throne and Liberty across the years. Although on AION, I didn't play Cleric all that much. I mostly played Cleric during the AION Classic days, and I mostly played solo. So not too much group play there, but yeah. That was typically my experience with support classes. How about you, Kegi?
Actually, my first MMO was Ultima Online, I think.
Oh, damn. And I'm the old one, holy moly.
Or maybe it was like Dark Age of Camelot, so yeah, pretty old games. But yeah, for support side, I think I played mostly World of Warcraft. I was playing Shadow Priest back in the day, so it's kind of close to Cleric, like a DPS Cleric, I would say. I played also Warhammer Online, and I also played there like a hybrid healer kind of class. So those are probably my main support games back in the days. Later on, I didn't really play Throne and Liberty or these new MMOs, so AION 2 was kind of refreshing. It was quite something else than the old ones, because the systems and everything, it's probably more closer to modern MMORPGs than the old ones. So it was kind of hard for me at start to keep up, like how the game is changing and all the systems and arcanas and everything. So, but yeah, it's been going pretty great after that. And of course, well, yeah, AION 1, of course, I played
XD.
10 years, so.
Yeah, I almost forgot about the most important one, but that's all right.
Pretty much, yeah. I played on competitive level, actually, on AION 1 for quite a long time on different servers, private servers, officials. We had pretty good teams, and I was in several PvP tournaments as well, usually on top 3.
Yeah, I remember that.
Either, yeah, I won one versus one tournament like really long time back in Nexus. I don't even remember the year anymore, but I started streaming back in the days when I actually saw that I could do it. And yeah, we had several like 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, and even 2 versus 2, and we were always on top 3, so that was pretty nice. But yeah, that's all I have, I think.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I mean, to your credit, I will say that, and we will cover that in a little bit, but Cleric and support in general in AION 2 is a very different beast compared to other MMOs, like even like some of the more recent MMOs I've played, right? Because obviously, as I've said, I've played Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14, Throne Liberty, AION 1, etc., right? But I've also played other games, although, you know, I don't really necessarily consider myself an expert of games I've played for like 100 hours, to be honest. Like I'm just not the kind of person that will release a YouTube video to say, here's everything you need to know after playing an MMO for 100 hours, you know? So I don't really consider those as part of the games I've played, but yeah, AION 2 has been a very different beast, yeah. But yeah, anyways, Mocha, how about you?
I used to play Final Fantasy 14. It was my first MMO, and I didn't really play much PvP games. I mostly did PvE content as a support, and then I played a bit of Throne and Liberty. I forgot what it's called. I think Wand and something. I forgot the other weapon.
Seeker, probably. Bow and Wand. That was the main healer, right?
No, it's not bow.
Oh,
it's like Wand and...
Greatsword, maybe?
I think it was Staff, maybe.
Yeah, Invocator, I think his name. Yeah. I see.
Yeah. And then I played AION, but yeah, I'm pretty new to PvP healing, so I'm still learning. And in FF, I did like Savages and a bit of Ultimate also. Healing in AION is a bit different compared to other games. Like, I'm used to like picking who I want to heal, like targeting them manually, but in AION, it just heals the lowest health person.
Yeah, it's definitely a different beast, yeah.
Do you prefer it, or?
I prefer manually picking who I want to heal, since I usually prioritize who to keep alive more.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very different feeling. But I mean, again, we'll have like a more in-depth discussion about this in just a moment. But yeah, for sure. So Temp0z, how about you?
I think my first MMO was Meridian 59, but that was long time ago. Then the one that I stick to was WoW. I started as a rogue, and then I played a priest after that. That's where I started AION 2 after that. So that's why I'm playing a cleric on AION 2 right now. In AION 1, it was quite imbar, but now in AION 2, you know, they seem to favor the gladiators and assassins. But yeah, I still like playing cleric though.
And speaking of opinion on cleric, I think that would be our next like order of business. So I guess I'll begin as well. Honestly, cleric, since the beginning of the game, and I mean, you guys tell me if you agree with that, but cleric has been a bit of a wild ride since the beginning of the game, because it has always felt okay, but it was honestly pretty terrible at the beginning of the game. Like, it was, comparatively to other classes, it was like very, very bad, and it's been getting constantly buffed, like patch after patch after patch after patch, and now we have kind of reached a point where cleric genuinely feels like one of the best classes in the game, like pretty much across the board, across every type of content, right? Now, obviously, some people will have diverging opinion, right? But it is important to always have a bit of a grain of salt, in the sense that we are playing with ping different than the people we are fighting. We are fighting with like different gear, oftentimes less gear than the people we're fighting, right? So it is always a bit difficult to quantify exactly where one class stands compared to another one. Cleric definitely feels very, very, very strong right now. And I do have some very spicy takes about some of the more like recent cleric buffs, which again we will be talking about this in just a moment. But while a lot of the buffs that cleric have received across the time have been genuinely necessary because the class just felt like, especially if you look at stuff like the attack speed boost on Judgment Thunder or even the damage boost on Divine Aura to an extent, which we'll come back to that in a bit. Like those were necessary buffs, but some of them have been very confusing. But yeah, like in its current state, I personally feel like both in PvP and PvE, Cleric is definitely standing at the top right now. How do you feel about it, Kegi?
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, they need to decide what they do with Cleric. I feel like they're kind of lost right now because it doesn't fit the philosophy of AION 2 at all. It's so different from all the classes that I don't think they can balance it out like this. Because you think about it, how a Chanter is, for example, it's basically a DPS that can support a bit, but on the other hand, Cleric is just bumping heals, and it's really what they first thought is that because it's bumping so much heals, of course it's going to have low damage. But then they realized, okay, well, you can't do your solo content, so I guess we need to buff your damage, and they just improved all they improved almost everything on Cleric, like all the animations. They made it a lot faster. They made it the damage so much better, and now it's even better than Chanter. So it's way too OP. So right now you can basically, it's unkillable, or you just, I mean, you're unkillable because you bump so much heals, and you can't really do your solo content if your DPS is really low, or if they try to balance it somehow out, then you're not bumping heals, and then people could just easily kill you. So I don't know. In AION 1, you could wear supportive sets and stuff like that, so you can justify having defensive set on PvP, and then on PvE you can have offensive set. But here you cannot really do two separate sets, so you have to go with one set. So usually you probably go with offensive. Well, PvE and PvP sets are now different, so it might actually differ from that. But even if we think about 1 versus 1, if you have only one set, which one would you go? Defensive or offensive? And also for group PvP, you need to like think everything through. I don't know. It's in a weird spot. I would say you probably go for DPS if you want to rank up in 1 versus 1 and group PvP. But then if a burst class should be able to kill you through that, so if it just applies enough pressure on you, so if you just bump too much heals and they can't kill you, then the class is just OP. So they need to somehow find and clarify what Cleric is supposed to be, because I don't think it fits the same way like all the rest of the classes right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, right? Like the thing with AION 1, it was a beautiful mess. Like AION 1 as a game should not work. In like the PvP in AION 1 should not work as well as it does, because it's a balancing nightmare. Everyone can have infinite sets, like every class has like 70 skills and that does a bunch of different stuff, but it just kind of works in the end, and the mess just kind of balances out in the end, and then you have like a very clear like matchups in the game. In AION 2, because the game is very streamlined, right? It's a lot more restrictive. You have less skills. You can technically switch between sets. There are presets to do that, but the thing is, if stuff like your Genius Insights, right? So these stats, if these don't support the set that you're currently equipping, then the set doesn't really work. So you're just kind of stuck with running a single set, at least right now. You mentioned choosing between a DPS or a defensive set. The thing is that people are pretty much running both at the same time, right? And that is also one of the reasons why Cleric is so strong, because as it stands, you're currently able to, you don't necessarily need to full send into offense, like let's say full send into attack or crit or damage boost to do enough damage, right? You just kind of send the defensive that fits within the set archetype that you're building, whether it's like more evasion, although rip evasion after dispatch, but we'll talk about that later. Whether it's evasion or endurance or regen or crit res, right? And then you kind of fit in like stuff like accuracy just to be able to hit the target. And then Cleric being the way it is, that works perfectly for it, because you're just constantly fighting a battle of attrition, and you're just like slowly killing the guy while never dying yourself. Which in a way is very similar to AION 1, but one core mechanic that AION 1 had, or I guess multiple core mechanics that AION 1 had, is that AION 1 PvP really hinged on baiting remove shock, which is Defiance in AION 2, and covering targets to like disable them for like a long period of time, right? And that's usually where Cleric faltered in AION 1. I think you can agree with me, Kegi. Like, any classes in AION 1 that could push you to burn your remove shock early on would usually have an advantage over Cleric. Because as soon as they burn that remove shock and they get you into a CC lock, maybe they can get like a cover silence out of the CC, then Cleric just kind of dies, right? But AION 2 doesn't really have much of that, because of the inherent way that most of, especially the DPS classes, are designed, where it's just XD we do damage. Obviously, classes like Assassin or Gladiator can work around Defiance and stunning and stun locking people, but the way it works in this game right now is you can't chain CCs the way you did in AION 1, and you don't also have like secondary tools like silences and stuff like that that you can consistently and reliably use as combo extender, because this exact philosophy could work in AION 2, because at the end of the day, Cleric inherently isn't that tanky. Like, Cleric is not the Templar, right, in terms of how resistant it is. It's just that Cleric has really strong buffs and can press a button to go back to full health at pretty much any point during the fight. And that's the thing. So ignoring the current problematic skills of Cleric aside, like, one thing that they could do as like a starter would be to add more undispellable anti-heals in the game, just so people like DPS classes and every classes in general at least have a window of opportunity where they're like, okay, I can push that Cleric down, I can get a stun off to get his HP down, and then I can combo extend with a healing reduction, right? And then maybe that's going to allow me to kill the Cleric if he's not careful. That would be a starting point, although I would probably look at an overhaul of like most classes kits, like Gladiator, Assassin, Elementalist. I think these classes really need a complete overhaul in the current state of the game. But yeah, I definitely agree with the sentiment that Cleric just does too much right now.
I also think like if you compare it to AION, Cleric, what I usually call it was it's like a skill check basically. If you can just weave good enough, if you can just slide shot, and like if your mechanics are just really good and you can just apply enough pressure on the Cleric, you will eventually kill him, because he just needs to run off and just heal, and you just spend all the time healing, and you can just kite the Cleric when he's back on full health and so on. So it's really hard for the Cleric to actually kill you if you just play it well and hug pillars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And here it's kind of the same thing, because people are not really good at the game yet. People are still learning. They don't really know how to apply pressure or get their best DPS out there. So that's why Cleric is really strong as well at the start of the game. It probably will even out when people know what to pick, which stats to take and everything like that, so they just make more damage. So Cleric will be really strong at the start for sure.
Yeah. As I said earlier, there's also very clearly a strong difference between power level of different players, which the thing is, if there's a difference of power level between two DPS players, like, it's immediately obvious, right? If there's a difference in power level with a Cleric, it's just, you feel like you can never do enough damage, which also helps the Cleric, right? So yeah, that's definitely something they need to iron out, right? Well, yeah. How about you, Mocha? How do you feel about the current state of Cleric?
I feel like Cleric improved a lot compared to the start of the game, because I remember like the start of the game, the heals used to be just like flat HP instead of HP percentage. So whenever you're trying to heal someone, like in Fire Temple, for example, everyone's just dying. You're just spamming your Q, and it's just healing 1k, 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 1k. And it only heals the lowest health person. So everyone's just passing away.
Yeah.
And Radiant Recovery is also really bad without level 16. So that also doesn't heal anything. And the cooldown used to be really long. So I feel like the new cooldown reduction is good. And the way they also added the 2% on the healing light is also good.
Yeah, it's definitely very strong, yeah. And I think that is something that maybe we should mention to people that don't necessarily know about the whole, like, flat versus percentage in chat for the Cleric healing mechanics. Your healing skills in AION 2 on Cleric have both a base value, like as you can see here, my Absolution heals around 6000 HP baseline, and then you can have additional procs that heals percentage of the health. And the thing that is very important about those is that these are not just doing what it says. So like, let's say you're hitting someone with 20,000 HP, right? You have that extra 10%, so you would think that it would just heal an additional an additional like 2,000 HP, but that's not what it does, right? Because this percentage is also impacted by your healing enhancement passive, which is your healing boost stat. So instead of healing 2,000, then it's gonna heal like 3 or 4 or 5,000 depending on a healing boost, right? Additional, and that percentage stuff is present on basically all of your heals, depending on how you spec, right? But most cleric that knows about that actually specs around those percentage heals, right? So as Mocha was just saying, your healing light, one of the recent specs they added was that you can heal 2% of max HP every time you use it, which is insane because this is a spammable ability. So like if you have 30k HP, you're healing like with a decent healing boost passive, you're hitting like 1.5, 2k HP extra on top of the baseline every time you use the skill, right? And same with Radiant Recovery that has an additional 10% as well on the spec. So yeah, and that's actually a good point that you brought up with the spec thing, because Cleric has obviously improved a lot with the patches themselves, but also Cleric is a class that completely changes when you get your high level arcanas and skills on the rings. It's kind of crazy. How about...
I also feel like
Go ahead.
Cleric might be a bit too strong right now since they changed the Light of Protection.
Yeah.
And the way Earth's Grace works, even though Light of Protection's damage buff doesn't stack with Chanter's damage buff, the Earth's Grace buff still does.
Yes.
So that's a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Light of Protection is... we're not going to talk about that just yet, right? We're going to talk about that in just a moment, because this is a bit of a spicy topic for sure. But how do you feel about, since you do, I think out of everyone here, Mocha, you probably do the biggest amount of like group PvP. So how do you feel about the evolution of Cleric in group PvP itself?
I feel like in group PvP, before they changed the specs to HP percentage, it was really hard to keep people alive. And with the gear difference, it's either you invul before you die or they just die. Like it's either you invul them or they get one shot. I used to roam with my duo. He used to be a Templar and it was okay at that time. Then he swapped to a Ranger. Then he was still building evasion. So if I don't invul him, he just dies immediately.
Yeah.
But it's better for Cleric to roam as a duo compared to 4-man group, because when it's a duo, since how the heal works, like the salvation goes on the lowest health person in the party. So if there's only one other person in the party, it will always go to them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely feels a lot more reliable. And dude, I feel like Cleric Chanter dual roaming would bang right now. I don't know. Maybe it's just an impression, but holy, it sounds pretty strong. Cleric just kind of, in any kind of group content, Cleric just felt like it just never had enough heal at the beginning of the game, and both in PvE and PvP. But now Cleric is a machine. It's a healing machine. Like if you don't want someone to die, that motherfucker is not dying. It feels like the little bit of group PvP I've done. It definitely feels like it's a bit too much at times. You know what I mean? Like especially with the TTK reduction patch and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's still a bit harder to keep people alive in group PvP though. Like if you're trying to keep one specific person alive, you can't always do that since the heals, you can't really control who it goes to.
Yeah. How about you, Temp0z?
I think it's good. It's better now in terms of PvP wise, because I'm a PvP solo player. Usually roam about in the abyss on my own.
Yeah, solo PvP on Cleric is a bit of a doozy, like especially with how, but that's not so much a Cleric problem as much as it is just an open world PvP problem, right? Like it's just, as strong as Cleric is right now, it definitely feels like sometimes we just never have quite enough damage to handle all of the Zergs and stuff. So yeah, like it's definitely a very different feeling.
Yeah.
We talked a bit about a very specific skill that was recently changed. I do think it is time to take a look at it, and that skill would be Light of Protection. For people that don't know, Light of Protection has gone through a couple of changes as of late across a decent amount of patches, which have felt very, how to put it, Band-Aid-y, I guess would be the correct the correct term, because basically recently there was a bit of a drama for people who haven't been following. At the beginning of season 2, a new dungeon came out called Dying Dramata, and it was extremely difficult in terms of the DPS check, right? One of the immediate consequences is that people started running with only comps that really pushed DPS forward. And as a direct result, because, you know, around the same time, people started using DPS meters a lot more and so on and so forth, people just sort of looked at Cleric's DPS and were like, yeah, you know what? Fuck this shit. We don't need that guy, right? If we die, we just pop a stone. It is what it is, right? Like we don't need that guy, right? So people started running 3 DPS, 1 Chanter, or like 1 Templar, 3 DPS, like those types of comps, and just completely ignored Cleric, right? Cleric players kind of went through a convalescence, like something that we kind of never experienced since the beginning of the game, where people just straight up told us to fuck off when we tried to join a group, right? And people would even make like group finders that specifically said no Clerics, right? As a result, NCSoft looked at that and were like, okay, people are taking Chanters, but they're not taking Clerics. Clearly, the reason why they're doing that is because of Chanter's Undefeated Mantra, giving you 20% damage boost, as well as, is it Perfect or Smite? I don't remember. It's one of those two. Anyways, it gives accuracy, damage boost. Yes, Smite. Okay, there you go. I think you're right then. Yeah, 5% crit damage as well. So they kind of looked at Cleric and went like, okay, if we want people to take Cleric, we kind of need to give Cleric the same tools, right? They went and took Light of Protection, which is a quote-unquote permanent buff that you apply to the group, that initially just increased movement speed, incoming heal, max HP, and at some point damage tolerance. And they basically put the 20% damage boost from Undefeated Mantra into Light of Protection, with the caveat that it doesn't stack with the Chanter Mantra. So this way, if you stack Chanter and Cleric, you don't get 40% damage boost, because that would be fucking ridiculous, right? And they looked at that, and then people started actually taking Clerics into group, and they said, haha, a job well done. Let's not look at this ever again. The thing is, I feel like they kind of missed the mark, personally, because this has hurt the game in a tremendous way that people, I don't think, realized necessarily how much it hurt the game. Because the thing with Cleric is that it already provided buffs that were maybe not similar to Chanter, but that were very strong still, because Cleric has Earth Grace, which, you know, you can stack it, but let's say on average it also gives you an additional 20% damage boost for the entire group, 5 seconds out of 10 seconds, so basically 50% of the time this buff is active, right? And then you also have the likes of Chain of Torment and Debilitating Mark that put insane damage reduction debuffs on bosses, a total of I believe it's 46%, right? So Cleric already provided decent buffs to the group, and even the entire force in the case of the damage tolerance debuff, right? The main difference between Cleric and Chanter was that Cleric was a healing machine, whereas Chanter was more of a melee DPS that also gave buffs, right? The main problem why that philosophy did not end up panning out was because of the resurrection stones, right? Which are these, because people basically just circumvented taking a Cleric and needing to survive by just infinitely self-resurrecting, right? So that is part of the problem. But on the topic of Light of Protection, the problem with just giving a flat 20% to Light of Protection is that, first of all, it buffed Cleric by itself in a 1v1 scenario, because all of a sudden now Cleric has an additional 20% damage boost, packed into a buff that also does 50 million other things, including increasing Cleric's healing capability, which, as we've established, is one of the main reasons why Cleric is unkillable in 1v1, is the healing capability. And it also did stuff like the extra damage that you get from the undefeated mantra on Chanta has the drawback that you need to be next to the Chanta for it to be active. And the moment you kill the Chanta, the buff is gone. Let's say you're in a group v group situation, if you kill the Chanta, the rest of the group doesn't have the mantra anymore, right? That's how it works. That's the drawback. Light of Protection has no drawbacks. You just put it on and it just stays there. Even if you die, the buff stays there. Which means that even if the Cleric is not next to the guy he buffed, the guy has 20% damage boost. And how many times in open world PvP have you encountered a DPS that is seemingly solo, but has this fuck-ass buff on him? It keeps happening. And it's only going to get worse if they keep this buff into the game, because people are going to start making Cleric ults that they just leave at spawn, and they just buff themselves and go do crime, right? While this has had the intended effect of making people take Cleric into dungeons again, it definitely hasn't been a net positive for the game overall, and this buff is a big problem. My personal opinion on what they should have done if they wanted to add damage boost would have been to replace the percent attack on light up regen with like a 10% damage boost, and that would have been enough, right? So this way you still have the drawback of needing the Cleric to be next to you at all time. It's not as powerful, and people would not be running this 24/7. Although I still disagree with the sentiment of giving a damage boost buff to Cleric. Cleric is not a Chanta, right? If you want people to take Cleric more into more light PvE content like dungeons, either you need to nerf self-resurrection stones, or you need to like change the way PvE is to make Cleric more useful. But this is not the way to go. So yeah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway, Kegi, take it away.
Yeah, I think this perfectly sums it up, that they're just lost what they're gonna do with Cleric, because if you're bumping heals and you're just not useful enough because also of those rest stones. Like if you're just a rest and heal machine, you're not bringing value enough to groups that just want to run fast instances that they don't really struggle with. They will just always take Chanter. But if they add these kind of buffs to Cleric, then it just becomes too strong. They need to somehow shape Cleric something different, I believe, because even Salvation as it is, if people are not gonna struggle with anything, it's getting wasted pretty much. It's just a get out of jail free card basically, but if no one struggles, then it's really going to waste. And then you have your resurrection, but if people are just gonna use those stones, well, it's another stigma that's just useless. So I don't know. They need to pick what they're going with Cleric and just stay with that. But I don't think Cleric that just bumps heals and is a rest machine is going to work. They need to figure out something else. I would prefer if Cleric would get some utility instead of like just like bumping heals. I actually feel like they should nerf the heals and add something else to Cleric. Then it would probably fit better into the class. Like it would be similar to other classes, and it would probably be easier to balance out other than what they're doing right now.
Yeah. You mentioned Salvation, right? So, I mean, that is another skill we're going to talk about right after Light of Protection, but Salvation as it is, and invulns in general in this game, they just feel like crutch, because it really feels like when they were about to release the game, they looked at the state of PvP and they were like, oh shit, the TTK is way too short. We need to do something about this. And they just like threw invulns and blocks on like classes as like a band-aid solution. I don't think anyone likes invulns in this game, right? I don't even think the people who have invulns like invulns in this game, because it's obviously a broken game mechanic that needs to change. Like I would much rather Salvation be like a big group shield or something rather than what it is, right? But yeah. Anyway, on the topic of Light of Protection, Mocha, what do you think?
I feel like the damage buff was a bit unnecessary. And I also don't like how whenever you enter a new instance, if you use Light of Protection recently, it doesn't go off cooldown and you need to wait like another 2 minutes or something. I feel like they should have buffed Cleric's personal DPS instead of giving them more utility to buff the party. since even with this Light of Protection buff, I feel like Cleric still struggles to meet the Nightmare DPS check.
I can agree with that sentiment, although broadly speaking, I just think, because right now they're just using the same damage formulas for both PvE and PvP, right? I just think they need to balance both separately and just like even out the DPS of like support classes in general, right? In PvE, just so that that is not a problem anymore, which I 100% agree with this, that just like taking away this kind of buff, but then just increasing Cleric's individual DPS in PvE, right? To just bring it more in line to the expectation. That would definitely be a help on that front.
But I feel like they couldn't just buff Cleric's damage because it would be too OP in PvP.
Yeah.
Since they also have invul.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's probably why they're finally going around and being like, all right, fine, we're gonna do separate calculations for PvE and PvP, because they're probably just like pulling their hair out, like, how the fuck are we supposed to balance this, dude? Like every time they put something into the game, like within the flick of a switch, and we've seen that with Gladiator and Overhead Slam, right? It's like they just add something into the game for PvE, and then it just breaks PvP as well. So they definitely need to separate the two in some extent. Yeah, I do also agree with the sentiment that Light of Protection should not be like a flat buff that you put on people, right? Like this day and age, and that would also help all the stuff I said earlier about not even needing the Cleric to be around. If Light of Protection was like a toggle, like a mantra, that would probably be a lot better, or maybe something that you have to spam, but then they will have to take away the fact that this also functions as a heal for some reason. This skill is just bad. it's just bad.
I've also noticed people abusing that buff recently. Like I've seen in World Chat, people are gonna ask Clerics to buff them before going into Nightmare, since the buff just stays on.
Yeah.
That's what I said earlier, right? About we're gonna reach a point where people just make old characters on secondary accounts to buff themselves for everything, right? And then you have a new problem on your hands with a buff like this in the game. And we are already starting to see the seeds plant themselves with people already doing that for Nightmare. And then some dude is gonna look around and be like, wait, why don't I also do that for PvP? And yeah, that's where the problem starts, right?
It's not Light of Protection related, but I feel like another problem is right now in PvP, every single high rank always roams with a Cleric, and even if you have a Cleric yourself, they have two Clerics, so you still lose.
Yeah. I mean that 100%. I mean, actually, I don't know if you watch my stream or anything, but I actually ran into a scenario yesterday where I ran into a Cleric and I was like, okay, let's do this, and then another Cleric popped up to pocket the Cleric, right? And it's like it started forming that Cleric centipede right before my very eye, and it's like, dude, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. Like, I know the ranking point situation is bad right now, but come on, dude, just give me a break. Like, just throw me a bone. It's like, how the fuck am I supposed to be killing anyone?
It's really bad when it's like two Glads, two Clerics. They just don't die. It's like 20 seconds of invul.
Yeah. And yeah, how about you, Temp0z? How do you feel about the Light of Protection changes?
I kind of like it.
Of course you do.
Yeah, of course I like it. Yeah, because I'm a solo player, so it works well for me. Yep.
But yeah, like, I think we've especially seen, like, because you and me both do a decent amount of like 1v1 arena, right? Like, we have seen the direct result of Light of Protection being the way it is in 1v1 arenas ever since they changed it. Like, Cleric has risen to God status because of it. It basically covered every downside Cleric could have had. Light of Protection just kind of came in and was like, here, my child, take it. You are now invincible and do infinite damage.
I feel like they could fix it if they remove the damage boost from it, and they could maybe do it like how Saving Grace was in AION 1, that you need to spam it and have it on, and if you drop below 50%, then you get the heal effect. But if you drop below 50%, maybe it would go on like a longer cooldown or something, so you cannot spam it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that would work better.
I feel like something like this would maybe be better suited to like a replacement for Salvation, I guess, instead of just being an invuln, being like something that saves you from death. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot they can do with this. Like, Light of Protection is meant to be basically the equivalent in AION 1 to to the buff, whom I forgot the name of, which is probably called Light of Protection now that I think about it, actually. But it's meant to be the equivalent to that, but it just has a lot wrong with it. Yeah, like also, like I touched on this briefly before, but for some reason this skill also acts as a healing spell. For some reason, instead of just applying a buff, it also acts as a healing spell. So if you have a decent amount of like illusion and CDR, then all of a sudden you have an additional healing button like every minute and a half, 2 minutes. So yeah, just
Yeah.
very weird.
Before, I feel like before it worked as a healing thing, but now that it has the damage boost and everything, it doesn't really need to cast it
Yeah.
the very first at the start of the fight, so it doesn't really, the whole skill doesn't really make sense anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, you just preemptively use it, and then if it comes back up mid-fight, great, you have another heal, but otherwise you're mainly using it for the buff, basically, right?
Yeah, before you could use it at like mid-fight, you didn't need to buff it at the start. Of course, it was a bit different back then, but yeah.
I do feel like they had it right when the damage boost was damage tolerance, because at some point they did change the spec, which is now damage boost, to be a damage tolerance buff, which I think was just better. So I hope they come back to that and then find another solution to the whole like nobody taking Cleric into dungeon stuff. Now on the topic of Stigmas, there's a couple of other Stigmas I want to talk about, which I basically went through a whole lot of different Stigmas across the months playing this class mainly as a solo player, right? So not necessarily for group play, but as a solo player, my staple used to be Voice of Doom and Root. And honestly, that was a very enjoyable way to play Cleric. It was high risk, high reward, you know what I mean? And it was very similar to AION 1 in the sense that you needed to like properly cover your stuff to pull off a root, and then you would use Voice of Doom to like seal the deal once you got the root, right? So Cleric felt great at that point, right? And they have made a few sneaky changes to some of those skills, namely Voice of Doom and also Heal Block. These two skills used to be undispellable. So in a Cleric v Cleric or a Cleric v Chanter, or even some scenarios like Cleric v Templar and stuff like that, basically it was all about covering your anti-heals, getting a root, and then opening a burst window to kill the target, which actually made the Cleric v Cleric matchup very interesting. In a recent patch, I think it was actually the same patch that buffed Light of Protection, they sneakily, without even putting it in a patch note, they changed Voice of Doom and Healing Block to be dispellable by anything. So whether it's the Dispel Absolution, Radiant Recovery, or Healing Potion, or anything of the sort, now you can just remove the effect from these, which in my opinion is a huge L. It's a massive L. Because specifically the Cleric v Cleric matchup is now entirely gear-based, which I think you might agree with that, Temp0z, if you do Arena, right? The Cleric v Cleric matchup used to be, you can, even if you're less geared than the other Cleric, basically all you had to do was push the Cleric far enough to bait Salvation, and then as soon as you did that, you would be able to pull off a cover Voice of Doom route and then nuke the Cleric, right? And then he would not be able to heal himself for like 10 seconds. You used to be able to do that, and that felt great, right? But now with those changes, Cleric v Cleric is just hold right click and whoever paralyzes the other one first wins, and it sucks ass. Like I don't know why they did that. So I hope they revert that change eventually, because that was a way more enjoyable way to play Cleric, and also it meant you had less healing tools, right? So it kind of fixed the like invincible aspect of it. And then on the root side of things, I have very specific opinions about the root. Like, it's Cleric's only CC if you forget about the stun chance on I believe it's Chain of Torment, right? The spec with the stun. It's Cleric's only CC chance, but from the very beginning of the game, it was complete gamble. And because the baseline landing rate of the skill is 75%, if you get it to level 15, you can get it to 100%. If you stack status effect chance, you can basically get up to like 140-150% chance baseline, which basically makes it land anywhere between 60 to 40% of the time on other targets, depending on whether they have two passive. Like Soul can Elementalist, for example, the root basically never lands on these guys, right? Because of the double passive. I understand that the root lasts for fucking 12 seconds, which is a little bit ridiculous, which is really strong, right? I feel like they need to build, like, especially offensive cleric, more around that specific skill. They need to balance it out to be more reliable and definitely last less time. Perhaps even like add additional effects to it. Like I like to say that cleric doesn't have a single skill that ignores evasion. I would like to see root ignore evasion, for example, be the one skill that ignores evasion. I would like them to change that skill because that skill is very interesting. You can use it as an intricate part of your kit, especially against certain classes, right? So these two skills, I would like them to revert the change on Voice of Doom and Healing Block and to just change root to be more reliable but less OP, basically. I don't know if any of you have something to say about that, because I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy that used to play with these two, to be honest.
I think they just realized that Voice of Doom is too OP against like other people that use potions and other heals, self heals or something. So they just made it easier to get rid of. But yeah, they didn't really think how it would affect cleric versus chanter or cleric versus cleric, I guess. So. And the root, I don't know, 12 seconds, it's way too long, but yeah. I also don't like that it's not really certain root. It's a bit stupid that you have a stigma that is RNG based. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, because that's basically all that skill does, right? Like the damage is okay, but you only use it for the root. It's a pretty long cooldown, and then it's like, it's basically a 50-50.
I tried speccing root for a bit, like at this early start of the game, but then I dropped it since it was too RNG and the cooldown is long, so I would rather spec other stigmas. I recently spec Voice of Doom though. I think it's still helpful even though it's cleansable, since whenever you're fighting a Templar, you can just remove their shield.
Yeah, in that aspect for group PvP, I definitely see the potential. Like, especially if you're like on voice with other people, you can essentially just like make a countdown and be like, okay, we can nuke that target in that amount of time. Especially if you're like focusing a cleric, if you just drop a Voice of Doom on there and let's say other people put other debuffs, then maybe it's gonna cover enough for the cleric to not be able to get through it like immediately. So it certainly still has users, and it's still like a pretty powerful ability, especially because they reduced the cooldown on it, which was pretty huge, right? But
yeah.
Specifically for the Cleric v Cleric matchup, I feel like it's a huge L. Because one thing in AION 1 that definitely sucked ass was support v support matchups. And Cleric v Cleric in AION 1 is pretty known as like the most boring matchup in the game, because it's two dickhead wailing at each other with like smite for 50 minutes until one of them either gives up or gets silence procced like 3 times in a row. So at least in AION 2 we had this play going for us to actually help in this matchup, but that's just gone now. So, yeah, I don't know how they could fix that.
But at least in AION 1 you could a bit think how you approach the fight and how you put your servants, and if you waste your cooldowns, then you need to retreat and try to bait some cooldowns from the other cleric and then get better position and then use your own servants and apply pressure to the other cleric. Like you had to time your shit and your stuns so you can apply enough pressure, and the other one just can't out heal your damage. But here you don't really have the tools. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, I mean you can kind of do that to some extent, because the Divine Aura is busted as fuck, and we're going to talk about that in a bit as well. So there is a bit of an element of that in Cleric v Cleric in this game, but at the end of the day, you can't really rely on that alone. You're gonna need some bullshit. So yeah.
I'm not sure about solo PvP, but I think Prayer of Ampli is also good. I also recently spec'd it for the times 1.5 Earth's Grace.
Yeah.
Can Divine Aura proc Godstones?
No, it cannot. I mean, thank God for that. Can you imagine with the rate of attack on this thing? Holy moly.
That would be nice.
That'd be, dude. I mean, people are bitching about Cleric already. Like, come on, we don't need more.
Divine Aura shoots like a ranger already.
Yeah, Divine Aura is my one saving grace against ping. I'm gonna say that. Like, it's nice. The Divine Aura lives in Taiwan. You know, it's good. Now, This next one is going to be a bit of a broader subject. How do you guys feel about use steals? And I'm not gonna elaborate more than that. Just how do you guys feel about the current state of use steals?
I feel like UCLs is really good, but most of the time I don't spec it because I just don't have the Stigma slot. Like, it depends. It's really situational because sometimes most of the time actually, I need more damage over more survivability because the faster they die, the less I need to keep us alive. So,
So you're talking about group PvP, right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I used
I think
to
the level.
spec this as well for arena.
It's good for very specific matchups. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know exactly what Useless does, Kegi, since you're not necessarily pushing Stigmas to level 20 at the stage you're at right now. But basically, for anybody that doesn't know, Use Steals at level 20 gives you 30% damage tolerance, extra block and evasion, which is good, but kind of whatever, especially after the next patch. And also gives you 20% status effect resist, as well as a small shield, right? The specificity of this skill is that leveling it up doesn't increase the values outside of the extra specs. It increases the duration of the skill, which means that if you play a cleric that stacks illusion for CDR, you can basically have use steals up like almost 50% of the time, or actually 50% of the time, right? Because it lasts for 20 seconds and you have a 40-second cooldown on it, or maybe a bit less, depending on your CDR, right? In group PvP, I feel like this buff is extremely powerful, personally. Like, the little bit I've used it, it definitely feels very, very powerful. Like, you can see the difference it makes. The status effect resist is kind of whatever, because status effect resist is like on stuns and stuff like that. It's fucking weird in this game. I genuinely think the math is broken on stuns. I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah,
but some stuns in the game, it feels like that they don't even do the calculation. They just apply the stun. So,
Templar one.
Yeah, Temp0z, exactly.
Yeah, like the very specific skills, right?
It's just broken.
Yeah, there's something wrong there, 100%. Sometimes, so let's say you have 100% baseline status effect resist, and then you have your Defiance buff, you have your survival willpower proc, so like you're standing at 250%, and then you have use shield, so you're like 270% CC resist on you, and you're like, hell yeah, brother, like come at me, brother. And then a Templar just fucking shoots a lightning at you, like he launches the Curse of Ra on you, and then you get stunned for 4 seconds through all of that, and it's like, huh? So the status effect resist is nice. Yeah, it's like, so it's nice, but it's not the main thing I'm looking at. It's mostly like the shield and the extra damage tolerance that actually makes quite a difference, both in solo and group PvP.
I think USteal is really good, but I haven't really spec'd it ever since they changed the light of protection because I need the damage tolerance more. Not damage tolerance, sorry, the damage boost.
Yeah. I think a lot of clerics are socketing. I mean, I haven't looked at it like too much, but I think most clerics are both in group and solo PvP. They socket light of protection, absolution, use steal, and salvation, right? Like these four, basically. Because these four are like the four horsemen of not dying, basically. Although I will say that in very specific matchups, in a 1v1 scenario, because that's what I do the most, right? Use steal doesn't help as much. Like, let's say you're fighting a Chanter. I think there's still more value in socketing Voice of Doom rather than use steal against the Chanter, because Chanter just like eventually gets the edge on you with stuns, right? This buff it's really good. It's maybe a little bit too good, but it's not what I would like nerf first in Cleric, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, when you look at the problems people have with Cleric right now, and you look at use steal, you would be like, okay, this is a huge part of the problem, but this is one of the more support-oriented buffs where I feel like it's actually more healthy for the game, because it reduces TTK in general, which I know maybe it sounds a bit weird after I bashed the fuck out of Light of Protection and Salvation, but you know, that's how I feel about it as well, like, at least. But yeah, on to another support skill, which I have pretty strong opinions about this one. It's Healing Aura. So at the beginning of the game, I tried to make Healing Aura work. I really tried. But I just simply cannot get past the fact that this skill just fucking sucks balls. And I would like to hear you guys' opinion on this, because I genuinely haven't been able to make this thing work. It's just bad. I don't know.
I feel like Healing Aura used to be really good at the start of the game because everybody had low health, but the problem is it's really bad now because it's not HP% and it's just flat healing. So
Yeah.
it heals you for nothing, and you need to stay inside the thing to actually get the buffs, which is kind of
Yes.
hard to do most of the time.
Especially when you have pugs that
Yeah.
just like to like max range and run around the boss.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw a few clerics using it, but I feel like it's just like a troll thing. Like they just use it for the lols or something.
I mean, kind of
Don't
like
think
Iron 1.
they just yeah. I don't think people would seriously spec that and put much points on it, but there's just too many better stigmas than this one.
Yeah. Also, the fact that the level 15 perk is 10% attack in a world where you're basically attack capture from gear alone. XD. Like, why? You know what? You know what? Put the damage boost on healing aura. There we go. Here's the solution. Replace the 10% attack with the 20% damage boost on healing aura. There you go. Here's your fix. Obviously, for legal reason, this is a joke. But yeah, so we are in agreement that this thing is irredeemable. It's fucking terrible, right?
Yeah. I think
Alright.
Absolution is a permanent stigma, though,
Yeah.
for both PvE and PvP. You can't remove it.
It doesn't matter what you do, and like I think I've made whether a short or video about this. Absolution is it's just on your bar and it just never leaves. Like I did try when they buffed LOP, I tried to remove Absolution to still run Voice of Doom and Root, but I was like, nah, dude, the class just doesn't function without Absolution. It's way too good, especially after the max HP buff. Because for anybody that doesn't know, the third spec of Absolution, which regenerates an additional 10% max HP, is it used to be only on the lowest health target, but now it's on everyone. So like this thing is incredible in every scenario. Does one of you have the level 20 version of it?
No.
I'm using the level 15 one because I feel like the 3% max health is kind of useless.
I kind of disagree. It kind of sounds good. I don't know. I haven't played around with it. I mean, I did try to unspec a few things to like play around with it, and it's like, yeah, this shit like takes at like 3k every 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's like the same as spamming your Q.
Yeah, but I mean, okay. I guess I have a bit more of a solo PvP perspective on it, because it's like, in the scenarios where you're like, let's say you're fighting a Templar, and anyone that has fought a Templar before knows that when you're fighting a Templar, you're stuck in a cutscene for 80% of the fight.
Yeah.
Right? So for that 80% of the fight, just to make sure that you don't burn your Defiance like a moron, that HP tick is kind of welcome, I feel like, right? So
Yeah.
For those kind of scenarios where you just want to like self-sustain while you're not able to attack, like I think it's pretty good. But yeah, obviously this is not your first level 20. I think we can agree that Light of Protection and Use Steals are more important at level 20. Maybe even Salvation, although I would argue that Salvation you kind of raise to level 20 more so for the CD reduction, more so than the actual effect. It's definitely a pretty strong contender, yeah.
How big is the 10% incoming heal on Light of Protection? I've been thinking about leveling it to 20, but I don't know if it's worth it.
The thing is, it's actually pretty significant because it's a permanent buff, right? So it's just kind of there, and it works on everything. It works on your HOTS. It works on all of your spot healing. It works on everything, right? And I don't know. I don't know if you use the spec that gives you the extra incoming heal on Radiant Recovery, Mocha. But if you stack the two of these, it's kind of absurd the amount of healing you can do with both of these up, right? Because like,
yeah,
if I'm stacking both of these, right, and I'm spamming my my healing light, I'm literally healing me for like almost 4k every time I press it. Like, it's absurd.
That's stupid.
yeah.
It's fucking stupid, right? So yeah, for that reason, it's actually quite significant. Also, it works on everything, right? So it also works on like your Defiance stealth heal, and it works on your hearts. So yeah, it's actually pretty good, both in PvE and PvP, which is why in the current state of thing, like Light of Protection level 20 it's probably one of your priorities for sure. Yeah.
I feel like level 20 invul is really bad though, because people can just bait your invul using any CC.
I think it has uses, especially if you're like you're trying to be you're trying to save your Defiance, and then you're really edging your death like really close. At least it gives you the option to like not burn your Defiance, right? But it's definitely very, very niche. Like honestly, if I level Salvation to level 20, it would probably be more for the CD reduction, more so than the effect itself, right?
I feel like I'd leave it at 19 instead of leveling it to 20. You have more control over when you want to invul.
Oh, question actually, because I never got Salvation to level 20. So I thought what this did is that it allowed you to press the button when you're CC'd. Does it just automatically use it?
Turns on the button.
Yes. No, you have you can press it when you seize it.
Okay, so that's
I
what
have
it
it.
does.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
really? I thought it auto activates.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't.
Then that's
press it.
actually, as I
That's
said,
actually
it's
good then.
useful.
That's very
Yeah.
good.
It is
Yeah.
useful. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's actually quite useful. Yeah, good to know, good to know. All right, and the last stigma I want to talk about before we move on to the next topic, and I know we've been here a while, but you know, it is what it is. Summon Resurrection. Now that one is a bit of a doozy. And it goes hand in hand with another aspect of the game that I do want to cover. So I think it's neat that it basically functions as a balanced low C, because for anyone that hasn't played AION 1, basically Cleric had 3 different res abilities. None of them have had a cooldown. And Resurrection low C functioned in the same way as Summon Resurrection here, which is you resurrected your group in AoE, and it teleported the rest people on top of you, right? Except it had no cooldown in AION 1. So in this game, they went back and they were like, okay, so we're gonna give this a longer cooldown, and we are gonna give it a longer cast time. But the quote-unquote drawback, like the main change, is that people actually just raise at full health with no penalty, right? That's how they balance this out, right? We're gonna talk about resurrection mechanics in general here. And before we go any further, how do you guys feel about these two things? Being, how do you feel about resurrection stones, you know, the white stones? And how do you feel about the fact that this game has no resurrection penalty? Because I'd be curious to hear your opinion on that.
I mean, they did add resurrection penalty, right? Because if you rest too many times on some instances, you lose S rank, no?
I mean more so like an actual like resurrection penalty, like, you know, like a soul sickness in Iron 1 or the weekend effect on the FF14, right?
I mean, it's quite crappy, to be honest. I don't like the fact that everyone just uses stones. It makes the content too easy, and you don't... If you just have enough stones, you don't even need a support. You can just endlessly just spam the stones. And that's probably also the reason why people don't really take clerics. They take chanters, well, before the changes. But yeah, I don't know. They need to do something with that. Maybe some sort of like you cannot use anything during certain instances, or like hardcore instances you cannot use any rest stones, or they just need to have some sort of limit or something, or maybe more punishing if you use your own rest stones instead of clerics rest, something like that. They need to change it a bit, at least.
How about you, Mocha? How do you feel about about res and no res penalty?
I feel like the rest stones, they need to like limit it to how many stones you can use per instance, maybe, because if not, people will just keep spamming it. Because even with the cooldown, they can just keep spamming it. So maybe limit how many stones you can use. And for the rest, I think you need like a damage down or health down penalty or something. So if people die too much, they can't clear, and they actually have to learn the fight over just resting over and over again.
Honestly, I agree with that. How about you, Temp0z?
I agree as well.
To maybe like go a bit further on that, like obviously I think we need some sort of resurrection penalty in the game. Now, Iron 1 had soul sickness, right, which slowed your movement speed. I mean, soul sickness basically gave you fucking COVID. Like this shit was tragic, but that was maybe a bit too much, because it made you slower, it reduced your max health. Like it was, you know, really brutal. I do think there is a nice in between. I think Final Fantasy 14 got that right, actually, with just basically just straight up nerfing your damage stats, right? I think that is a good option. And then on the topic of resurrection stones, I understand that the reason why they added resurrection stones in the way they are in the game right now is because they don't want to be stuck in a situation like in Iron 1, where if you don't have support classes, if you don't have a very like strict baseline comp, you just cannot do anything in the game, right? So the reason why they added those stones is this way, especially on like lighter PvE content, people can just go with any comp, even 4 DPS, and then they can just ball, right?
I think they added it because of the monetary.
I don't know about that because I don't know about you guys, and maybe that's just a me thing, but even though I play Cleric, which is technically the only class in the game that actually has to use Resurrection Stones, like, I cannot run out of these fucking things. We have too many. They keep giving us more, like, events keep giving us more. I just cannot. I've been spamming these stones by diving people into guards in towns, and I cannot run out of them, right? I think it's just purely that they just added it as a bit of a crutch to allow people to run any comp, right? But as Kegi and Moca said, and I mean, as everyone said, the clear downside to that is it undermines the difficulty of PvE, which is one of the reasons why people feel like PvE in this game is a joke, because there's no consequences for dying, right? And it also undermines the ability of Cleric to be able to resurrect people. Obviously, we have Sanctuary, which removes the ability to use those stones, which is good. I genuinely think the debuff you have in Sanctuary that prevents you from using those stones should be present in every PvE content that is like endgame. Transcendence 7 and above should have this thing. I think hard mode dungeons should have it as well, right? Like any endgame activity should have it. And in anything else, I think the stone needs a short cooldown. It doesn't need to be very long, but I think a short cooldown, like basically have the stones just give you a limited amount of lives, like during an encounter, as opposed to just being able to just spam XD, right? So I think Resurrection Stones should have, because most fights have a 5-minute end rage, I think the stone should have a 3-minute cooldown. So this way, at the absolute maximum, on light PvE content, you can only res twice, and if you die twice too many, like, if you die 2 times too fast, you need a character res you.
Do you know what they're going to do for that?
Hmm?
They're gonna make the cooldown on the rest stone, and you can reset the cooldown with Kuna.
XD. Yeah. Basically, you just die and then you have the prompt from the old arcade machine, like insert coin to play again. I mean, yeah, I think that would be a good in-between. Now, obviously, I understand that people would be like, well, then you're going to make Cleric mandatory, right? Which is a fair statement. And I do think the resurrection spell in itself needs a nerf, personally. I think the resurrection should not res people on the Cleric. I think it should rest people on place. Like, you can immediately rest people on a safe spot, right? For example, or like even in PvP, you're able to just raise people like 40 meters away. Like that's too much, right? I think it should raise people on the spot. And I feel like maybe giving Chanter the ability to resurrect as well, but maybe resurrect only one person at a time or something to balance it out. Just so there's another class that can resurrect people would be a decent thing. But then you also run into the problem of like Lamau, you only have like full slots, right? So, but there's definitely something to be done there.
I feel like Cleric's rest being an AoE is too good. I think the resting on the Cleric part is fine because it works the same way in FF14, but in FF14 you need to actually rest everybody one by one instead of everybody just resting at the same time.
I mean, I guess the difference is that Resurrection in 14 doesn't have a cooldown though.
Yeah.
So I guess if they did that, they would need to like pretty severely reduce the cooldown of Resurrection.
It's still kind of weird that I don't even have the subscription that you can buy more of those stones from the shop, but still I have like 200 rest stones, just not ever running over. They just keep sending those as compensation, and also like on the holidays for extra rewards, but it's just silly that they just give out so much. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to be done here. Like, and it's a bit weird, right? Because I don't know if any of you keep track with the overall opinion of both Chinese, Taiwanese, and Korean players. But I feel like, if anything, people have been asking for more Saffron stones instead of like actually balancing it out. I feel like when the game comes to West, people are gonna bitch about that. I don't know why, but I feel like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but yeah, it definitely feels like the Koreans and Taiwanese haven't been talking about this at all. Like the Saffron stuff, right?
It was okay when they gave some at the start of the game when everyone's just new to the game, but now it's getting a bit awkward, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation is there for people to basically have them like infinitely always, and they keep asking for more on the dev live. So clearly, this is a mechanic that needs to get addressed as the game stabilizes, and they just like let the game run its course, right? Because otherwise, it's gonna be a bigger and bigger problem. And also, like, we haven't reached that point yet, but people are gonna start gatekeeping people if they don't have self-rest stones. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's it definitely needs to change to some extent. And like, even if this is not like a topic that necessarily pertains to cleric in itself, it also kind of goes hand in hand with the whole light of protection discussion, right? Because at the end of the day, if cleric was the only option to resurrect people in dungeons, people would not be asking for cleric to give you 20% damage boost. They would just be taking a cleric to res you. So yeah, I think that covers it pretty much on the Stigmas side of things. I don't know if any of you wants to like discuss anything else on the topic of like Stigmas.
I think we covered pretty much all.
All right.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna take a really short drive-by on the regular skills, because there are a few things that I feel like would be nice to talk about, and then after that we'll discuss general build stuff. But how do you guys feel about the current state of Divine Aura? Because that I think that has been a big topic when it comes to how OP cleric is.
I think Divine Aura's damage is okay, but it shoots too fast. And I remember there was a bug last time where the attack speed was really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, before it wasn't a problem, but they buffed Divine Aura quite a lot, so
Yeah.
I think the damage was boosted a lot. Like before it wasn't even a thing, but now it's hitting quite hard.
I don't know if you've ever looked at the individual numbers of Divine Aura, but like, let's say on a juiced cleric, like each individual hit does like 700, 600, which doesn't seem that big, but I think the big thing about Divine Aura is the mix of the fact that CDR impacts it, obviously, and also the third spec that increases the shooting speed by 100%. I think this one is the big culprit right there, right?
But then again, this was kind of how Cleric won. I mean, Cleric worked in AION 1, that you were basically getting your face smashed and you just summoned your servant, and the servant was killing the enemy while you were lying on the ground getting smacked by the other guy. So
it is true, but there is one stark difference. I agree with that. I don't necessarily dislike the way Divine Aura is, because as you said, basically you play cleric right now. You play cleric in a very similar fashion to AION 1, where you just set up dots and your Divine Aura, and then you just like heal yourself while it does the job for you, basically, right? But one of the big problem with the Divine Aura right now, I feel, is the fact that it's functionally indestructible. Because in AION 1, the Noble Energy, which was the name of the one that actually did damage, it did a lot of damage, but it was extremely frail. If you hit it like once or twice, it just broke, right? In AION 2, the Divine Aura, you could be literally bringing out an entire troop of people to wail on that thing, and it will not die. You can even use it as bait when rifting. You pull guards on top of it, and the guards will not be able to kill it. I think they don't necessarily need to address the damage of Divine Aura that much, although they might have to do it just a little bit, especially when it comes to the shooting speed. Or maybe like stop it from being able to crit and stuff like that, I think would be a decent first step. But I do think one of the main balancing thing they need to do with it is to allow people to like be able to turn around, target it, hit it a few times to break it, right?
Yeah, then again, the thing I hated in AION 1 is that people can use your own servant against you. Like, for example, gunners or sorks, they can just, well, SMs at least, they can just leech full HP from your own servant while killing it. So in some situations, you couldn't even use your own servant because people could abuse it against you.
I mean, I think that was part of the fun, though. And by the way, people 100% do that in this game as well. Like, I don't know if any of you do arena beside Temp0z, but let's say when you're fighting like a gladiator, when you drop your Divine Aura, you have to like go away from the Divine Aura, because the glad is just gonna AoE you and the aura at the same time, and it's just gonna regen to full health. So that is one thing you need to be very careful of.
Yeah, I like the idea that you need to take your own position, and if someone dives you, you can just basically have some sort of upper hand on that certain space, but you can also just try to bait the Divine Aura and then just run. Like, that should be a thing. So if it really shoots too fast, you can't probably do it right now, but it should be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, right now the strat against Divine Aura is if you see the cleric put down the Divine Aura, you just go out of range, because it doesn't have a huge shooting range, right? It's 20 meters, but because it shoots that fast, by the time you get out of range, like, yeah, and especially because you have, obviously you have to dash away, like the Divine Aura shoots you in the back. So it just kind of ends up doing like a normal damage. So yeah, it's I think like it's okay, maybe reduce the shooting speed a little bit, but I think there should be some amount of counterplay in the sense that you should be able to break it, I feel like, at the bare minimum. Which I think the reason why they made it so tanky is because in Iron 2 you move so slow. When you put down your Divine Aura, it usually ends up being right on top of you, and then you can't really get away from it too much. So, and because every skill's cleave in this game, if you made it die in like 2 hits, basically anyone would just like AoE by accident and just break it immediately. So I'm pretty sure that's why they make it tanky. I mean, I don't know, maybe they could change it so we have to place it on the ground, but then that wouldn't really necessarily work on action mode. There you go. I mean, I like Divine Aura, don't get me wrong. Like the way it is right now is great, because if you're fighting like Sulks and Rangers, you basically just set up defensively, you reduce their defense, you drop the Divine Aura, and you fuck off. And the Divine Aura just wins for you. So that's pretty cool, but I can see why people think it's a bit too OP. Yeah. And then moving on in terms of the skills. Overall, I think Cleric's kit is very nice and very satisfactory. So there's genuinely not much I would change, personally, outside of the Stigmas stuff we discussed, right? Although I will say that quick pass by debilitating mark, why does this not work on people who are moving? Like, if the guy you're targeting is like even remotely walking forward, it just misses them for some reason. So please fix that. That'd be nice. The other thing that I have a bit of a problem with is, and that's more of a general Iron 2 problem, is the fact that casters don't really cast in this game, they channel. Like, both with Radiant Recovery and Bolt, the fact that these skills are mobile even when casting, and they cast so fast, I think you kind of lose the essence of a casting class. Like, I honestly did not have a problem with Radiant Recovery like rooting me in place before. So I feel like making it mobile was maybe a bit too much of a buff. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I would say no, because in the end they make everyone mobile, so I don't think it's usable if it would be static skill. Especially if you think about group PvP and how fast people move and they can use mounts and everything. So I don't think it would be usable if it would be a static skill.
How about you, Mocha?
I remember the movement, the mobile thing used to be the third stigma instead of the -2 second cooldown.
Yeah,
I feel like they should have just left it as a spec instead of making the skill mobile, so clerics could choose if they want mobile or another spec.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because if you had the plus 20% skill speed, you don't really need the mobile since the cast is almost instant.
Honestly, I do like to run the debuff removal of it. Like, I've had this on pretty much from the beginning. I know some cleric don't run it, but I just find it to be maybe not always in PvE, although even in PvE I do find it to be pretty useful, but I do find to be the debuff removal like basically mandatory. And then, as we've established, the extra 10% max HP is basically mandatory because otherwise it doesn't heal for shit. And yeah, the extra incoming heal, as we said, when you stack it with Light of Protection, makes Healing Light ridiculous. So yeah, like that's why I wasn't running mobile before, and it felt fine. So the extra free mobility definitely felt a bit too much for me. But yeah, I mean that's fair. They do make everyone mobile, which, don't get me wrong, I think one thing about this game where they're maybe overdoing it a bit, making like every caster, like everything mobile in the game, but you know, that's probably a topic for another day in general.
Yeah, I don't know. In a way, I like it in group PvP if you need to take some sort of space with Cleric and you need to stay back and kind of think your positioning while doing skills. So I kind of like that you can move more and you can just pick the fights and pick your position what you're going to do. If you want to DPS more or slow someone down, you need to go forward and take a risk that you might get hit.
Yeah.
In that sense, I like that, but yeah, I get it. Everything is too mobile, and especially the thing that you can go faster if you're out of combat and you get slow
Yeah,
when you're in
don't get me
combat,
started on a shit
it doesn't
hallway.
really work right now, properly at least. So
Yeah.
there's issues for sure.
Mark my word, by the way, this game mechanic wasn't thrown. It was removed when Throne reached global because everyone hated that shit. It's gonna be gone on Iron 2 as well, alright? So come back in a year, the movement speed slowdown in combat is gonna be gone from this game. Also, the whole like combat mode versus non-combat mode thing is handled terribly, but again, topic for another day, right? Like, let's not stray too far. But yeah, moving on to the next topic, which, let me change that little things. Next up, I would like to discuss building on Cleric in general. So basically, how you guys are building, why you're building this way, do you think your build is working well, what you would change, and what you would like to see change when it comes to like stats in general in this game, and like build, maybe perhaps even like the way you build in this game. So not necessarily gonna ask Kegi first because Kegi is just happy to be here. But all right, Mocha, what are you running? Tell us, enlighten us.
Like skills or
Let's start with like stats and like soul binds and stuff like that, right? And then we'll go into skills.
For PvE, I feel like clerics don't do enough personal damage, so I'm trying to build more damage, and I feel like endurance might be good for PvE, and maybe constitution. And I'm just building accuracy and crit, and for passives, it's mostly the healing enhancement, Lord's Grace, and Earth's Grace.
Yeah, what about PvP?
For PvP, I was trying to build evasion, but then that didn't work out because clerics don't have evasion passive, so I feel like classes without evasion passive, it's just really hard to build evasion, because for evasions, either you stack it or it does nothing.
Yeah.
And now people have a lot of accuracy, so evasion's kind of useless if you don't have a lot of it. So I'm slowly transitioning to endurance.
Endurance, okay. And
Yeah.
how has that been treating you?
I think I'm a bit more tanky because evasion wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah, fair enough. Evasion is very strong, but it's especially stronger against, I guess, low gear players, right? It's more so a filter
Yeah.
against low gear players, right? Which is nice and all, but it definitely like doesn't really help you in the situations where you would like it to help you. And obviously evasion was also pretty strong against classes like assassin, because assassin doesn't have like evasion ignore on its important skills like trinials, right? And because evasion tend to like hard send evasion themselves, they don't necessarily hit the high accuracy stats. So it's pretty useful against that. But with that said, with today's dev live, they have announced that Devotion Rune will now give a bunch of accuracy, which definitely marks the death of evasion for non-regen assassin. So I definitely agree with the sentiment that, yeah, you kind of have to transition now as a cleric. You know, maybe some people will make it work, but yeah.
For now, I'm just trying to stack status effect, resist, constitution, and endurance, so I don't get one tapped by the whales.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, personally, with when it comes to endurance, I mean, I've talked about this before, but the thing with endurance specifically is that almost everyone in the game right now builds illusion, right? Because of the CDR. Because CDR is great for pretty much every class, right? But the thing with illusion is it also gives you endurance pen, which means that most people have a really high baseline endurance pen. So if you want to build endurance effectively, you need to full send everywhere, including your genus, including all of your pantheon. And I feel like even if you do that, you just kind of get stuck with a stat that isn't quite high enough unless you run endurance on like crafted orange gear for the higher values, right?
Yeah.
And also Ludra bracelet for the additional, what is it, destiny for endurance? So, I mean, report back. Report back on that to see, because I'm assuming you're running gold gear, right?
Yeah, I've noticed chanters who run endurance are really tanky though.
Yeah, I mean, Chanta is a fucking menace anyways. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so far, the extra health from constitution has been helping endurance. I haven't really seen anything.
Okay. Fair enough. And you're running status effect resist as well, as you said.
Yeah.
How much do you have now? I'm assuming you're probably around 90% if you're full sending.
Most of my gear is still missing. Status effect resist. My rolls have been really, really bad.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
How about you, Temp0z? What are you personally running right now?
Going on endurance, I think is the meta now.
Do you also run like status effect resist,
And
or like also maybe regeneration on top of endurance, or
endurance and smite.
okay, like smite resist or like smite?
Smite.
Okay, so you're going for like a more
I'm trying
damage.
to-
Okay.
yeah.
I've been wondering actually about how smite on Cleric could work on PvP. Like, are you actually seeing results when it comes to like smiting people in PvP, or do you think people have too much smite resist right now and you need a bit more?
Not really.
Yeah.
Because I get one shot sometimes
Right.
in Abyss, yeah.
I guess in arena maybe would be a bit of a better example. I've been thinking about it, like about actually sending smite instead of damage boost, but I don't know. People have way too much baseline smite resist in PvP, so I don't know about Cleric. Me personally, being the peasant that I am, I kind of foregone endurance in general. Like I kind of took a step back because I used to just full stun status effect, and then I was kind of torn between going for evasion or anything else. And then I kind of took a step back and I was like, okay, I'm a frugal gamer, right? I can't send the Horn Dragon gear. I can't really send all of those. So I need something that works on the budget. And because of that, I've been basically building towards status effect resist and regeneration. And I'm not really hard sending regen, like I don't have it on my genus, but I'm sending life on my god stats and regen on my piece of gear. And the nice thing about life is it also gives HP percent increase. So it kind of works with the whole meat shield situation, like you said with Constitution moca, right? And I've got to say, I have around 40% regen now with like the baseline I have. And I have around 34-35k HP with the life I have, and I'm pretty satisfied. Like I've been looking back at some VODs of PvP, and even against 4k players, like mega juiced players, it pretty much procs 40% of the time. Like because no one is running regeneration pen, because death is a stat that no one goes for, and nobody wants to waste soulbind lines on regen pen. So I've been pretty satisfied, right? Obviously, with my level of gear, I'm not able to win against everyone because I'm just getting outgeared in some scenario. But yeah, I've been able to like compete against whales even with my gear. And then with the additional slots, I've been running smite resist and perfect resist because there's been a huge increase in people running both perfect and smite in PvP, especially with classes like elementalist, for example. Like elementalist smite your ass quite frequently. So it's been helping a bit against that, and for the final stat, as well as when it comes to the last soulbind slot and my genius insights, I've been running accuracy because Cleric just struggles against evasion targets because we just don't have the accuracy passive or the skill that bypasses evasion, right? So I've been saying that, and it's been working pretty good. It's gonna work especially good after the devotion runes give us accuracy. That's gonna be nice, but. You know, so far I'm quite satisfied, but yeah, I would have been curious to hear like how endurance has been training you, because it definitely feels like endurance is like too good to be true, and then it doesn't actually proc unless you're like giga fucking juiced. So yeah.
Right now, I don't have enough endurance for it to proc, so maybe Temp0z does. I think he's like Diamond 5 everything.
Yeah, I believe so, right? I believe you're like a Horn Dragon gamer, right?
Yeah.
So have you been seeing like frequent endurance procs in PvP ever since you pivoted to it, or is it like still kind of a whatever?
Not really.
Do you have Ludra bracelets right now? I forgot.
Yeah, the yellow one.
The yellow one, okay. Do you I'm guessing you run Destiny on it for the endurance as well?
Do you think regen is more helpful than endurance for clerics? I'm still deciding on my PvP build.
The thing with regen is, I mean, I don't know if you know what it does, but regeneration is basically a weaker endurance. In the sense that basically what regen does, when it procs, it gives you back 15% of the health you just took back, right? So it essentially functions as a 15% the damage mitigation instead of 50% from endurance. But because it procs more frequently, I feel like it helps more. You know what I mean? Now, against low-end players, endurance is definitely better because I think low-end players don't have as much evasion, as much illusion, sorry, or as much endurance span. But across the whole spectrum, it definitely feels like regen is pretty good. Yeah. To the point where actually, I would assume that even if you full send endurance, you might be able to also build a bit of regen. And it would also like help in situations where endurance doesn't proc, the regen procs instead, right? So
Yeah, I was thinking of building both endurance and regen, but I don't know if I would be able to stack enough of both for it to be helpful.
yeah, like the problem is you basically need the orange gear for the additional soul mines, right?
Yeah.
Like you need the Ludo bracelets, you need the Horn Dragon if you want to do both. But I think there's definitely room for both, yeah. For like a frugal gamer, I would personally definitely recommend regen. And then on the topic of builds, and I don't know, actually, you know what? Let's give Kegi the benefit of the doubt. All right, he's been looking at the information around, right? He probably knows a few things or two. So, what do you think, Kegi? What do you think about the whole like soulbind and so on and so forth on Cleric?
Honestly, I didn't put too much thought into it. Like,
All right,
so
thanks,
far,
Kegi.
because like it's too hard to tell from some of the stats. I didn't PvP too much, so it's a bit too hard to tell. But I've been waiting for our DPS meter, so you can then test and see
Yeah.
more of the how much it actually affects. That's probably when I start to put more thought into it.
You know what we fucking need, Kegi? We need a fucking PTR to test stuff. Because
True.
Switching from build to build in this game has been a roller coaster. And like I feel really bad for people right now that looked at the dev live today and are hard sending evasion and are like, oh no, it's happening again. And then they're gonna have to reroll all of their geniuses and everything once again. Like, yeah.
I wonder actually if they do that on purpose, that they just like keep changing the meta so people need to reroll the stats. Like, it's cynical... a good business call, but
yeah, like the cynical part of me would agree with that. The knowing NCSoft part of me just realizes that they don't know what the fuck they're doing with PvP honest in this game, and they're just kind of winging it until it works. Because they kind of did shit like that on AION as well. So, did enough evasion? They are adding accuracy onto the devotion runes, which means that the average player is going to have an additional 300 to 400 accuracy. So, on the mid to high end, evasion is basically going to be dead for anything that isn't assassin or ranger. That's kind of the agreed upon status of things, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wait, all right, so just to recap a little bit. Basically, evasion for Cleric, falling hard, falling off. Definitely not as good, and it's going to get even worse. Endurance has potential if you have high gear. Regen, really good in general, both for the frugal gamer and the high end. And then for the rest, it's just whether you're more of a group defensive Cleric or if you actually hit people. So if you're hitting people, accuracy, you kind of need it. Cleric really needs accuracy. Even after the nerf, you're going to need it to hit like rangers and stuff. For the rest, it's going to be your status effect resist, your constitution, like all of the meat shield type stats, right? I think we can all agree on that. So moving on still on the topic of building, we're not going to go over all the skills again because we obviously just did. So we're just going to quickly go over what skills you guys like to prioritize at level 20, what skills you guys want to prioritize at level 16, and why. Both on the skills and passive front. So once again, I think we can start with moca on the more group PvP side of things.
For level 20, my priority is Radiant Recovery since it's my main heal. I can't really sustain a group of people with just spamming Q.
Yeah.
I need the -2 second cooldown, the incoming heal, and the 10% HP.
Okay. You don't like to run the debuff thing in group?
No, because I have Absolution.
Yeah, fair enough.
And people usually just use their yellow pots, so I don't need to run the debuff.
Okay.
I feel like level 20 Light of Regen is also good for the extra passive buff, like maybe damage tolerance or evasion. And level 16, of course, Divine Aura. Condemnation also. I'm thinking also about level 20 Condemnation for the route.
Yeah, I've seen more and more Cleric run that actually. Yeah, that is one thing I'm wondering about.
Also want level 20 right click, but 16 is also okay.
Yeah, Judgment Thunder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for group PvP, I think that's definitely fair, yeah. How about you, Temp0z? What do you run at 20 and 16?
Divine Aura.
Alright, fair enough.
Yeah. Divine Aura and Bolt.
Bolt, okay.
Yeah, the Bolt. Yeah, the Bolt.
What do you spec on
Yeah.
on Bolt at level 20, I wonder?
Can't remember.
Damn. Who has a level 20 and can't fucking remember why? Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's definitely a
I
choice.
spec whatever it is, then yeah,
Okay.
and go regen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Earth Retribution.
Okay. So left click, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you have less ping, so it makes sense, yeah.
Healing Light.
Yeah, for the spammable. I think every cleric needs that.
Yeah.
I'm not really spec properly actually.
Hmm.
Hard to get what I want.
Yeah, I've been there for sure.
Yes,
Like
yes.
getting the Arcanas kind of suck
Oh.
ass as a cleric, yeah. And then on the passive side of things, like what do you guys prioritize on the passives?
Earth's Grace.
I mean, I guess it makes sense for group PvP.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one for sure. I've seen a pretty high raise in popularity in Immortal Veil as well. I don't know if you guys
Yeah, Immortal
also.
Veil's good.
Yeah, I mean, basically each level is like an additional amplification armor, right? It's kind of equivalent to that. So
Does survival willpower work?
well, allegedly, yeah. I mean, at least at
Really?
least you get the status effect resist, right? So that's always nice. The damage torrent definitely works. Yeah, it definitely helps.
I've also seen a lot of Warm Benediction clerics.
That's the HP percent
The
one, right?
HP.
Yeah. Like on accessories, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it is
And
worse
healing
than
enhancements.
Constitution, but yeah, healing enhancement is definitely gonna go with that. Yeah. For me,
Yeah, at least it works for every content, so
yeah. For me personally, like what I'm currently running, because I pretty much mostly do solo PvP. At level 20, I have Chain of Torment. I have the slow, the damage torrents, and the extra ticks of damage for that. I've been pretty happy running these three, although against certain classes, it would be nice if I was able to use, like, let's say, when fighting like a Templar or a Chanter, for example, I think the extra duration instead of the slow would be nice to be able to spam Condemnation more, but, and I don't think they've fixed that yet, if you spec for the extra duration and the interval reduction at the same time, the extra duration doesn't work. I don't know if it's intended or something, but it's been like that for a while, so yeah. I'm just running the slow for everything. And then on level 20, obviously, Radiant Recovery, right? Like that's you just kind of have to, right? It's just way too fucking good, right? Because I do solo PvP, I'm running the debuff removal, extra heal, and the extra HP healed. I tried to run the -2 second cooldown on it for a bit, but specifically for solo PvP, I haven't really been seeing too much of a reason to do so, because when you're solo, you can just spam Healing Light for the same result, right? Whereas being able to remove debuffs is actually pretty important to, like, let's say, remove the ranger mark or remove like the defense reductions from Gladiator and stuff like that, right? Yeah, that's why I'm running that. And then I'm running level 20 Judgment Thunder. I'm running the less MP consumed on it, the extra damage on the solo targets, and extra activation on the follow-up. The -20% consumed, I'm mainly only running because with 200 ping, it's a huge DPS loss to weave Earth Retribution. So I kind of completely unspec'd Earth Retribution, and to make up for the lack of MP, I'm just using the MP reduction spec on Judgment Thunder. But if you have low ping, it's probably better to spec level 16 Earth Retribution with a multi-hit and then weave between the two and just use your MP for that, right?
Do you auto attack cancel, or does it not work with your ping?
It does work to an extent, but it's much slower.
I tried holding left click then spamming right click. It works a lot better for me that way.
It straight up doesn't work for me. It just skips the left click entirely. Even like even either using macros or even like mouse macros, it just doesn't work for me. So yeah, that's why I eventually just unspec'd. What were you gonna say?
We had a conversation about this. Like after they did the change that combat speed affects those charging skills. After that, they changed something. The weaving changed quite a lot. It's not as efficient as it was before. I'm not really sure how they changed it, but someone was trying to check, but some of the DPS comes a bit later, even though the animation is faster. So it's not as fast as it actually looks like, and the weaving on Cleric doesn't really affect as much as you would think.
Yeah. Like, the main perk for weaving on Cleric right now, in my opinion, is, well, first of all, obviously the mana. But second of all, the multi-hit on Earth Retribution is basically your main source of, like, Theostone procs. But yeah, with hyping, it just doesn't work out anymore, to be honest. That's why my Earth Retribution is entirely unspec'd, and I really only press it when I engage to try and get, like, an additional, like, Theostone proc or something. Otherwise, I never use it. Also, because you're just kind of stuck weaving Condemnation most of the time between Judgment Thunder. Like, I just don't find the slot to use Earth Retribution. Now, obviously, probably if you have low ping, you probably have more windows of opportunity to be weaving this in, but yeah, I don't really find it right now. So that's my level 20 skills, and then on the level 16 side, obviously, Light of Regen for the damage torrents. I'm still using the % attack on it because I don't have my accessories fully amplified, but otherwise, if you already capped, probably go for the % defense, right? And then I have Divine Aura level 16 right now. I will be increasing Divine Aura to level 20 when I unlock the extra skills on my rings. Simply because to be able to run the extra speed, extra duration, less cooldown. Right now, I'm just running the extra speed and the extra duration. And I know some people might wonder why I'm not running the lower cooldown instead of the extra duration. The main reason is that in a lot of fights, if you have the extra duration, the guy dies before the cooldown comes into play, especially in open world PvP, right? For that reason, that's why I'm running right now. Although, if you ask me any other day, I would probably change my mind between the extra duration and the lower cooldown. I do think the low cooldown is really, really good. And that's why I want to push it to level 20 at some point, to be able to use that. But yeah, that's what I'm using right now. And then I have level 16 Condemnation, but that's more of an accident. I'm not using the root spec, I'm just using the mobility and the self-reset, obviously, just like anybody else. I do see a lot of Cleric run the extra root chance, and I wonder how effective that is, because 20% is very low. And having fought Clerics that use it, it wasn't really much of a bother to me, especially since you can just pot it, right? So, yeah. I don't know how effective that is, but yeah. I've also seen Clerics run the knockdown on Chain of Torment, which I kind of disagree with, personally. Like, I don't know, does any of you run the knockdown on Chain?
I'm running the knockdown. It works sometimes.
It does?
No.
Yeah, it works sometimes.
The main problem I have with the knockdown on Chain is that, number one, obviously it's very unreliable. 20% is pitiful. But because Cleric doesn't have any other actual CCs, like stuns, when it procs, you're basically just giving a Defiance for free to your target, which gives them like 10,000 HP and the extra ability for free. I just find it to be more of a nuisance. Especially with solo PvP, right?
I've seen a lot of Clerics run root on their right click and Condemnation.
Root on the right click, isn't it like 10% or something? Yeah,
it's like 10%, but for some reason there's always procs.
Damn.
I don't get it.
That's crazy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can you basically bait the potion so you can just use Voice of Doom?
Alright, Kegi, I'm gonna be dead ass with you. People don't fucking use healing pots in this game. They're dumb as fuck. So I'm gonna when I was using root, like, you don't realize how much at the beginning I was playing like a nice little AION 1 player. I was like, ooh, let me put my 2 little dots before I put my little root, yes. Until I realized that nobody was potting that shit anyways. So I just ended up like raw dogging my root 99% of the time, and it just kind of worked. So obviously on the higher end, people do use healing pots, but there's no brains in the game right now, especially with the kind of players we're playing against. So you can't really like fish anything with that, because yeah, people just don't do anything with it.
Yeah, good point. Maybe later.
Maybe
like
later, yeah.
6 months to the game.
Maybe on global, you know, who knows? And on the passive side of things, I used to full send survival willpower. I do send some survival willpower still because of the damage torrents proc. Because basically, every minute when you get CC'd, you're guaranteed not going to have to press your Defiance because you have an additional 50% damage torrents at procs, so you can just hold your Defiance. So I do like survival willpower for that specifically. I have traded off some of it for healing enhancement and immortal veil, and I'm still like hovering between all of them, yeah. And then in PvE, obviously, Earth Grace, healing enhancement. I don't think there's much to say here.
Yeah.
I was considering heal block at some point in PvP, but especially now that you can dispel it, it's like fucking useless. So whatever. Yeah. How about you, Kegi?
Honestly, I'll just go. I didn't have much to choose because I'm too casual, so I don't even have plus 20 skills yet. So I tried to go for heals and then just basically judgment and condemnation because of the weaving, basically. Just overall better DPS. That's just basically what I go for. On passives, healing, more healing, and HP. That's basically it. Because I mostly just PvE right now. I haven't really PvP'd much.
I guess in PvE, Warm Benediction has extra value for sure, especially in stuff like Sanctuary where you need to not die. So yeah. Oh, I almost forgot one of mine, by the way. Whoops. Let's go back a little bit. Very important. Level 16 Defiance. I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, but level 16 Defiance on Cleric is fucking OP. All right. I don't want to hear it. The self reset on level 16 Defiance keeps fucking proccing. And every time it procs, number one, it's a get out of jail free card. And number two, it gives you 10,000 health back. The amount of 1v1s I have won against Omega Whales because of level 16 Defiance cannot be underlooked. It's crazy. Because like every time you're fighting a Glad that is just like slamming his dick on the keyboard, just like using overhead slam over and over and over, and they stun you and you have to Defiance because they do too much damage. If you get your Defiance back, they don't know that you have Defiance, so they might do some dumb shit, and it keeps working. So, yeah, like level 16 Defiance, do not underestimate. It's really good, in my opinion, on Cleric. It's maybe not good on every class, but on Cleric that survives longer than the average class, and relies a lot on not getting pinned, especially for like a lesser geared Cleric like me. I've had a lot of good results from level 16 Defiance. And also, obviously, more Defiance levels means shorter cooldown, right? So that's also pretty nice, right? But yeah. That's what I run.
I also forgot to mention the stagger E is helpful for PvE.
Yeah.
The -1 second cooldown.
Yeah. I used to run that. I don't have... I need a PvE Arcana to get it back, unfortunately. But yeah, it's definitely pretty good. Especially if you run like 2 stagger skills on Cleric on fights where you can spam stagger skills. If you have that spec, it's pretty fucking juicy because you can just spam your stagger skills every time. But yeah.
My Arcanas are a mess right now. I can't get what I want.
Likewise.
I mean, look, we are getting a new set of Arcana cards with a new Transcendence Dungeon, so please look forward to it. I'm sure you're excited, just like all of us here, right? I'm so excited, dude.
More RNG, let's go!
Yippee! Yeah. I mean, at least the new sets are not like that great, so because I actually have decent cards, I think I'm just gonna stick with what I have and just like use the new balance card and just leave it at that. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for the builds. Obviously, there is Genius Insights, but I think it's kind of implied that if you run accuracy, you roll accuracy. If you roll evasion, you roll evasion. If you roll smite, you roll smite. You know what I mean? So when it comes to Genius Insights, these are pretty implicitly tied to what we decide to run on the Soulbinds as well. Right? So don't be too upset if we don't necessarily go too much in depth with that, because this podcast is already running overtime. Anyways, next topic. So if you had to make a very short wish list for Cleric in itself and stuff that pertain to Cleric, right, in the future, like let's say you sit down in front of a dev live and there's one thing you would like to see for them to announce into the game, whether it's Cleric or anything else, as long as it pertains to Clerics, right? What would it be? I guess let's start with Kegi.
Better UI, for sure. Like, that's the first thing.
I mean, I guess it does pertain to Cleric, yeah, actually.
Because fucking those group PvP instances, you can't see the other group or some shit like that. Like, it's so awful. Everything is all over the place. You cannot really... Like, for example, if we look at AION 1, like I just dragged everything as close to the center as possible. I organized
Yes.
every single skill like on its group, like self heals, they were all in the same place. Dispels, everything all in the same place. So you can just check how many cooldowns you have left for the next fight, and you know immediately what you can do on the next fight. It just makes everything more simple. Now everything is all over the place. You cannot even organize your skill bar because because
You sound
Stigmas
so
need to be
defeated.
on those 4 slots. If I could choose, I would have DPS skills like organized how I use them, or just how long the cooldown is, so it's just easier to check. It's just faster to react to things and stuff like that. You cannot even put your consumables on the skill bar. That's another thing. Like, you can't... All the scrolls, all the consumables you have for PvP, for example, there's so many stuff you could use, but there's just no room. You cannot even bind them with keybinds. I mean, I could
Yeah.
just go on forever.
Especially
with
coming
this.
from AION 1,
Yes.
where we had 50 million keybinds for everything. It's a bit of a brutal change. That is for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and for sure, like, I would actually hope they nerf Cleric heals a bit, but they add more utility for Cleric. At least those routes that are RNG or something, they should be more certain. But yeah, that's at least how I would like to see Cleric. More reactive role on the battlefield. For example, on group PvP, I kind of feel like it's just you're mostly just healing and spamming heals and just staying back. You can slow, but that's about it. Because your build is kind of so heal spec. I don't know.
That's true,
There's
actually.
not really...
Yeah, like, I think, I know what you mean, because, like, in AION 1, even in group PvP, like, you had some amount of disruption. You had a stun, you had your root that you could spam. Like, let's say, if you're seeing a dangerous DPS chase someone you're actively healing, like, targeting that DPS and just rooting them was actually actively helping the guy you were healing, right? And same thing with
I mean, you could
Haddock Strike,
stun.
right?
Yeah, you can slow, you can stun, you can root, you can control people that are trying to get to you, and also you have a really fast burst you can use on enemies that actually helped. So if you're focusing on a target, you can just burst fast damage on the target people are focusing, and you can probably finish that target, and that makes the like everything so much easier. Because in AION 1, I feel like you couldn't out-heal the damage. The damage was just too much. You're just buying time with the heals, so you need to finish your targets immediately so that you can just get off. After that, if there's 1 DPS less, then you can actually keep people alive. So at least those would be my top wishes for the game. A little bit different role for Cleric, at least what it is now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good approach, yeah. And I can agree with the UI thing, like, especially, like, I'm using an ultra wide, right? So every time I want to, like, check out my group's health and heal someone, I have to, like, physically turn my head to the left, like, all the way, like, and you know what? I kind of feel sorry for the people watching my stream, because the moment they allow us to have a modulable stream, you guys are not going to see shit. Everything is going to be crumpled in the middle of the screen. You're not going to understand what happens. Because that's basically how I play on every MMOs otherwise. So yeah, 100% I can agree with that, yeah. What about you, Mocha?
I also want UI changes. I want to be able to move the party list closer to the center of the screen.
The fucking
And I also want to be
Buzz
able to...
Lightyear meme with, like, I'm so
I also
special.
want to be
unique.
able to choose who I want to heal with my Q instead of just healing the lowest health person. And I also want to be able to hide white player names or just anyone who's not in your party, because I can't see.
Oh yeah, especially in
that's true.
GVZ, right? People just get cold
Yeah.
and you just can't see them anymore, right? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Bit of a sidetrack here. I think they should just improve the nameplates in this game. I think you should be able to target someone by clicking on the nameplate, and I think nameplates should be more visible with people in your group and stuff like that, right? Like That's yeah, for sure. How about you, Temp0z? What is your biggest wish for Cleric?
I don't think I have any.
Bro is just happy. Bro is just happy
It's
with
just
Cleric being
yeah,
OP.
yeah, I'm just yeah.
I have another one I missed. You know how
Alright.
the minimap, whenever you're in a party, it just says P
Yeah.
and you don't know who is who.
True.
You can
No,
only-
you're right for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should say like P1, 2, 3, 4 or
Mhm,
something.
Yeah. For me, it's obviously a mix of what you guys already said. Better UI, better pizza, Papa John's, but otherwise, I do want to see them, obviously, as I said earlier, change Light of Protection because the buff is toxic. And I think the biggest wish I have is to get an extra Stigmas slot. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, if I'm gonna be completely honest, if I had to wish for something that is not that realistic, I want an extra Stigma slot, dude. We have too many good Stigmas on Cleric, and
Yeah.
getting one extra one would actually would make me be able to sleep better at night, you know, because I keep going back and forth. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one. But yeah, otherwise, as I said, I do want, on the topic of Stigma, I want Root to play a bigger part of Cleric in this game. I think we need to be less of a healing machine, and as Kegi said, we need to have more utility, because Root was the quintessential, biggest, most important part of Cleric in AION 1. It was a spammable skill, but you had to be smart about the way you used it, right? And it was disruptive in both solo and group PvP. It was such an important skill, right? So I would like to see Root play a bigger part of Cleric's kit right now, for sure. And that begins by making it less OP to balance it out and making it more reliable, for sure. Because it's literally the only CC Cleric has. So, and it's the only way we have as Cleric to like get a bit of breathing room. Because as it is right now, is Cleric really good? Yes. But every fight as a Cleric against every class is just us getting beat up without being able to kite or do anything. We just have to just take it and spam heals like morons, right? So if they want to actually balance out the healing kit, they need to also give us an option to get a bit of breathing room. You have an invuln? Yeah, but first of all, the invuln needs to go, right? Like, that's just firm handshake on that. Invulns are just bad for the game. It's just something that is intimately tied within the Cleric's game mechanic that you engage with all throughout the fight, right? That's basically what I want. I just want a tool that is something that you use during the fight as an actual tool, as opposed to just pressing invuln and just XD, you do whatever the fuck you want for 5 seconds. Whether it's on Cleric, whether it's on Glad, whether it's on any class. So this shit has to go. Obviously, we would need something else to take its place that would serve the same purpose but less OP. But yeah, invulns have to go.
That's the kind of thing. If they remove invuln and they don't add something more, you just delete Cleric. Then like there's, I feel like if they go this road with Cleric, there's two options. You're either OP or you're dog shit. Like there's two options. I don't know if you can balance it out.
I mean,
properly.
this also,
they need to do something.
Yeah, this also inherently has ties with the way the game itself handles like CCs and damage and so on and so forth. It's just, whereas AION 1 PvP was a game of chess where you had to move your pieces in a certain way to finally get a checkmate, AION 2 is a game of chess where you pull out a gun and you shoot the opposite player. Literally, what ends up happening in a PvP encounter in AION 2 is either the guy has too much gear and just overwhelms you with damage and there's nothing you can do about that. There's no smart play. And there's not really an essence of like fishing remove shock or defiance. There's not really an essence of like getting a cover silence or cover seal, because the classes just don't have kits that are complete enough to be able to do that, right? So I think with Cleric and with every other classes in the game, inherently it also comes with them finally settling on a TTK and reworking classes to fit within that TTK. Because, and we're gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, but something really stupid that the devs have been doing since the day one of this game is they've been applying a patch to extend the TTK, whether it's by nerfing the eye level scaling, or reducing the effect of crit and smite, or doing the stat squish on the pets, or rebalancing PvP damage. And then people start bitching that they can't kill people anymore because everything is reliant on damage in the game right now. And then the devs go back and give people more damage. And then we go back to square one. And then they do it all over again. And we've done this exact thing 4 times now. Now, the PvP is a lot better now than it used to be at the beginning of the game, but they are still not addressing key problems with class design in this game that makes it so the only solution for them to buff classes right now is by just giving them more damage to just one-shot people. And that's just incorrect. They need to go back to the drawing board with most classes and just basically do shit the way they did it in AION 1, because it was literally perfect for a tap targeting game, right? Just focus CC kits around having enough CCs to be able to apply pressure and force someone to use Defiance, to them CC log them when they don't have Defiance anymore, and remove the fucking Defiance spec that gives you the RNG proc on it. They need to, for classes like Soak and Elementalist and maybe even Assassin, give them enough random debuffs on skills so that they can properly cover seals in a satisfying manner. Like with Gladiator and Assassin, give them better, more guaranteed CCs for them to do the whole like Defiance stuff, right? It's all of that, right? Instead of just giving more damage. Because a prime example is Elementalist. Elementalist has been a mess, or Spirit Master for AION players. Elementalist has been a mess since the beginning of the game, because they haven't been able to balance that properly, because 4 skills out of the Elementalist bar are just summon skills, right? So they can't quite strike the balance by giving them like the correct tools, right? So Elementalist, the way it is right now, is it's just Sorcerer 2, right? The way Elementalist works is you have 2 main paths to kill someone. You either taunt someone with the Earth Spirit and then you kill them, or you bring out the Ancient Spirit and you unload your Biden Blast on them and just crit them for 27k, right? These are your 2 paths. And that doesn't feel like Elementalist. It doesn't feel like Spirit Master, right? So for Spirit Master, for example, they just need to give Spirit Master a pet bar and put the summons on the pet bar, and then give a proper spread of skills, of dots, of dispels, of seals, to be able to give Elementalists the ability to do what Elementalists did in AION 1, right? And this type of stuff needs to happen with basically every class. You're not going to get to a satisfying point in PvP until you build actual fundamentals with PvP in the game. And that goes with any competitive game. It's the fundies. And the fundies in AION 1 was remove shock baiting, covering, weaving, following. The fundamentals in AION 2 is smashing your keyboard and hoping you crit the target hard enough for like 80% of classes. These are what they need to fix before they move on to anything else.
Yeah, honestly, Spirit Master feels really boring to play if you think about it. If 4 skills are just summon skills that does a skill with a pet, and then you have few buffs, and like you don't really have much left. You just basically just spam 2 buttons. that's it. Yeah. It feels quite boring to play.
And like, that's not to say that those boring classes are weak, because Gladiator is currently a 1-button class. It's not weak because it's a 1-button class. It's just that they keep going back and forth between making Gladiator dog shit or making it a 1-button XDD class. And they haven't been able to figure out how to do otherwise, right? Elementalist is the same. Elementalist has a lot of potential. It has strong sustain, strong party buffs. It's actually pretty strong in PvE. And in PvP, it does have the XD tool of like being able to smite crit with Ancient Spirit and one-shot people occasionally, right? And maybe cheese a guy or 2 with the Earth Spirit taunt. But other than that, like, it doesn't really feel all that engaging. Which is one thing that kind of sucks with Cleric, because Cleric is one of the classes where you're actually interacting with your whole kit. It's one of the only classes where you do that, right? Like this, I think in general, the support classes are kind of in that category, which is one of the reasons why the support classes are probably the classes that feel the best in the game right now, being Templar, Chanter, Cleric. But obviously, it's just hard to strike a balance between either being abysmally bad or being way too good with those classes because of that. So they just have to go back to the drawing board, because they have changed their vision of the game already, so they need to realize that what they designed initially just isn't going to work in the long run.
Even Chanter feels so weird when like you charge into a mob and it dies and it resets the charge and you can do it again. It looks so weird because you can perma-charge into mobs if they just keep dying.
I think
I don't know. It's,
pretty much every
it's
class
weird
is one
from
of these
a
now.
melee
Like,
class.
they did that because of the pet farming aspect, right? But I mean, the pet farming aspect is kind of mostly gone from the game because you just farm pets with daily dungeons now. So even those additions are like kind of they're just kind of there now. Some people still do it, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's
I don't think they should have added that. They should have just made it easier to farm pets instead.
and
It's
they
not
did
good
both.
if they yeah, they keep changing the classes so that they're more fun to farm, I guess, but yeah, it just changes the classes too much and the balance is kind of all over the place because of it.
Yeah. So I think that covers pretty much everything in terms of like what we would like to see for Cleric. Unless anybody else has to add anything that they maybe just remembered. Next, I would like to briefly cover maybe like our current plans, like immediate plans when it comes to like gearing, maybe set like build switching and so on and so forth with Cleric. So, you know, in terms of like our immediate plans with the class, basically. Starting with moca, I guess.
I want to build endurance for PvE and maybe regen for PvP. And I also need to get my radiant recovery to 20.
Oh boy. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, new transcendence.
So need my second yellow bracelet.
I mean, you're gonna be able to open multiple chests in Ludra now, so...
Did they increase the overall boxes, or is it just still 2 claims, but you can claim both in the same run?
I would assume it works like regular dungeons, so I think you're just gonna be able to open a total of 4 Ludra boxes.
Oh, that's nice then.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get my bracelet.
I'm praying for you. Maybe someone will finally get a fucking weapon. Holy moly. Like, have you guys seen a single one?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Like, neither did my group, and I've been asking people around, like, no one is seeing weapons. Like, it's... Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, yeah, great. You like, I'm gonna get my my second PD ticket, right? It's great. It's sitting in my bank. You know, it's not really doing much on that. With the introduction of Sanctuary too, maybe go back and buff the loot rate a bit, or maybe add like a weapon PD of some sorts. I don't know. How about you, Kegi? What are your immediate plans with your Cleric that is totally at endgame right now?
I'm actually thinking to start from scratch when we get the PC UI and just try to make some kind of challenges while doing that. Maybe try to go like... I want to test how long it takes to catch up with almost free-to-play, if not entirely free-to-play, and see how long it takes to catch up, so we can see for global that's how it is to start late for new players. Because I don't know how well this system works if they keep nerfing those, like right now you need alts, but it's good that you have this rotation that people keep creating alts, and people who come to the game a bit late, they have people to play with. But if people don't need alts, the low levels, or the like, let's say, if new people start playing this game, they can't find anyone to like do trans level 1 or 2 or 3. There's no one there. Like, it's just full empty, and there's only people who try to boost and take money out of it or something like that. So
that's already a problem.
Yeah, I can just see it getting worse. So I want to see how miserable experience it actually is for new players, and see if they actually make it better. At least what I understood, that they're trying to reduce the amount of alts you need, actually, so it could even get worse for new players.
Honestly, when it comes to Transcendence, I've been saying this, but I think they need to cut the amount of levels in half. Like, half of the levels are just bloat, right? Because they just like drip feed you a new card one at a time. So if each level just introduced both at the same time, you would have half the levels. So it would make the climb easier. But in general, like, one of the way they are quote unquote addressing it is because you have those seasonal like missions that reset, that requires you to do the whole climb again. So that is one way that people have been able to find people to climb. Like, I know that's how I found people to climb on my ult, right? But otherwise, I mean, I think something that other games do to fix that the problem of new players is typically like introducing like roulette, right? So just have like a queue that queues you into a random dungeon, and that gives you like bonuses for helping people, basically, like once a day or a couple of times a week, right? So that could be one thing they could do, like a Transcendence roulette or stuff like that, where you do a random level with someone else.
They need to add incentive for people to do the low levels or something. So
Yeah.
otherwise, there's no like a decent rotation for the new players, and the game will just die on early levels, and it doesn't like it's not gonna live forever, or it's killing the longevity of the game if that happens.
Yeah, I think one way they are starting to address that is obviously like the low end dungeons give you the tradable Bailic mats that are worth a lot of money, so a lot of people are going back to these to get those. And then I know the new Transcendence dungeon is not going to drop the card directly. It's going to give you a fragment that you synthesize into the card instead. So it's not going to matter which level you do. As long as you keep spamming it, you can just craft a new card instead. So that might be a glimpse as to how they want to like fix people only doing the highest levels, maybe. But yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a problem with those kind of systems, right? Like, it was also a problem back in when I played Throne and Liberty with the challenge dungeons where you climb the levels. Like, the early levels, it was harder to find people, but one way they... I mean, the thing that Throne did to fix that is there was no restrictions. You could just spam that shit infinitely, basically. And when it comes to Transcendence Dungeon, like, I feel like that is definitely an option. To just... Because I know they want to prevent people from, like, doing carry runs and thing, but I think them being so obsessed with limiting the amount of time you can help someone else clear fights is gonna come back to bite them in the ass. Because some of the more like popular MMOs, some of the more successful MMOs right now, they limit you on the amount of like stuff you can farm with a given content, but they don't limit you on the amount of time you can help other people. And I feel like if you don't limit people, if you don't stop people from helping friends or helping other strangers, then the problem kind of solves itself in the sense that because more people are helping other people, the people selling carry runs are not as sought after, if that makes sense. So even though it seems like a bit of a contradictory solution, maybe there would also be another solution to just let people do whatever the fuck they want. Yeah, I guess that pretty much covers everything, doesn't it? Unless someone else has to add anything else. All right, so now we're just gonna take a couple of minutes, I guess, to just discuss the new stuff that just came out, fresh out of the oven with the new dev live, right? I don't know how much you guys have been able to look at, if you were able to look at the live directly, or if you caught up on the notes afterwards. But I'd like to hear a bit of your opinion on the stuff that was discussed today in the dev live. If you're not sure,
the new board is gonna create another eye level gap between whales and normal players.
The Marchand board, right? Like the green one?
Yeah.
So did we get confirmation on the Marchand board being an additional power increase, or did they not? Did they straight up not say what it has on it? Because I feel like they haven't said what it does. Did they? I
think it will be PvE because I heard it drops from Transcendence.
They could do other stuff with the board system. Like, let's say, I mean, typically I tend to associate the color green with crafting and gathering. Like, I don't know why, which game this came from for me, but like whenever I see green, I think crafting and gathering. So I was thinking maybe they could add like a life skill board that just helps alleviate the problems with the current crafting system. Like, maybe you can spec more towards not failing crafts and stuff like that. So that would have been interesting as well. But yeah, because I don't know what they would add a new board for in terms of like the stats it would give, you know? It is a bit confusing to me. But yeah, I guess we also had the change to the ranking point system finally. So for people who missed it, they are actually changing the amount of ranking points you will lose when you die. That's nice. Solo PvPers rejoice. We are not going to be in the negatives every time we go out in the abyss anymore. That's pretty good. And then what else? So as we talked about, they are adding PvP accuracy to the devotion runes. So yeah, as we said, evasion on anything that isn't assassin or ranger is probably dead. And
It's also good that soulbind rerolls. You can't roll the same stat anymore.
yes. Finally, you're not gonna roll MP into MP 7 times in a row anymore. So thank God for that. Holy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think about the Instaclear tickets?
I kind of don't really feel any particular way because it's cheap, but it skips something that was taking 30 seconds to begin with. So whatever. I guess if you're running ults and you don't want to like waste time, you have the option to do that now for like almost free. PC UI is coming soon, yeah, brother. Just fucking bring it out already. Totally. Let's stop talking about it and actually bring it out. All right, like
Yes,
please.
they lowered the cost of Stigma morphs, so that's at least really positive change because Stigmas has been quite limited. I don't like the fact that your class is kind of not playing. You can't play your class at full potential because you just don't have Stigmas for every occasion that you would use them for. For example, Cleric is a good example. If you play it as a support, then you can't really do 1v1 arenas because you just don't have DPS Stigmas. You can't root people, you can't DPS them properly. You just have heal Stigmas, so it's not really... I don't like the change. It favors DPS classes that just need certain Stigmas and they can just use them for every content, so it's not really a good thing that they're so restricted.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone suffers of the stigma, like the limited stigma stuff, to some extent, right? Especially support classes, to be fair. Like Chanter is another one that affects differently in like solo PvP, group PvP, PvE, so on and so forth. In general, this comes with them like giving us more sources of stigma, which they have, but they also kind of somewhat took away from us the ability to buy stigmas with AP, right? Because right now you have to buy your gear, you have to buy your medals, and then where the fuck do you find additional AP to buy your stigmas, right? So that's one of the reasons why they brought the stigmas in the dungeons, like the stigma gamba in the dungeons, but it's been too much of a kina sink. Because we are getting a lot of them, but it's incredibly expensive. Like 1 million per stigma is insane. So they are lowering the cost to craft them. But if I'm gonna be honest, I just think the cost should be gone entirely. I think we have enough kina sinks in the game as is. I don't think we need kina costs on the stigma and also the metal gamba. Like I think these need to go, personally. And I think that would partially fix the problem. Because there's a bit of gating, obviously, behind actually farming the stigma shards, but at least you're getting a constant supply of them from doing everything in the game, right?
I also feel like they need to expand the Abyss ranking brackets because right now everyone's just 9th class.
Yes, I actually made a video about that, and there's only 1,000 rank 8 and above on the server, which is fucking ridiculous. Like, rank 1 through 9 needs to be uncapped. There only needs to be limitation on officers and above. Like, it's just weird the way it is right now. Everyone is just stuck at rank 9. And we also need some sort of carryover of rankings on season reset. Like, I think everyone who farmed enough ranking points should be at least rank 1 on season reset. So this way it's faster for people to farm the ranks. Because right now, on season reset, everyone is a fucking trainee. So for like the first week or two, there's no officers to do the quests. Like, it just doesn't feel good, right? So yeah. Not everyone should be starting at rank 9 at the beginning of seasons. But hey, at least now you don't lose as many ranking points when you die. So it's a start, but yeah, they definitely need to do a few more things. And we need DK as well. Get it everything out of the way. Just add DK as well to the rankings. There you go. Next we have the Arcanas. So as I said, the new card, we're only going to be able to transmute, which sure. Although the stat pool needs to be fucking insane, and we're not going to be able to choose a stat. So basically we're going to have this new card is basically going to be a grail that where you can't choose the stats and that you farm slowly. Godspeed, soldiers. If you get a good one, you probably should get a lottery ticket or something, because it's going to be very difficult. And yeah, obviously there's going to be change to the matching, so we're going to get matched against new servers. And they have mentioned that, I don't know if it's a translation quirk, but apparently rifts are just going to send you to a random server now. So that's interesting. But I mean, in general, I think we're going to be able to just about wrap up this little roundtable of ours. It already ran a bit longer than I thought, so I don't want to keep everyone hostage here for too long. Before we go, I don't know if you guys have any parting words.
Thanks for the invite.
No.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Finally,
thank
someone
you.
said it.
Thank you.
Holy shit! Give me some credit.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
But yeah, obviously, thanks a lot for coming today. I know you guys probably have
Right.
busy schedules, and some of you are probably doing this in the middle of the night as well, because time zones are fun. And NC Stuff did a funny haha with the the rescheduling of the live stream. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming tonight. I don't know
Right.
how often we're gonna be doing these. Let me know both in chat and in the YouTube comment section below once this video is gonna go up on YouTube. If you would like to see more, also feel free obviously to provide some feedback in terms of what we could do different. And yeah, I think that should just about wrap everything up. Before we go, like, I don't know if Kegi, you have any plugging to do, or anyone has anything to plug before we go?
Honestly, one thing that we're actually doing right now is we're providing a free DPS meter, which should come probably in the upcoming week or weeks. I'm not sure yet, but it's quite close being quite accurate right now. So we're probably getting closer to 1.0 release. So that's at least something everyone can use. So that should be pretty useful for the community.
Nice. Look forward to that. You're going to be able to be toxic in your groups now. Excellent.
Yeah,
you're
we
going to
can
be
blame
able
the
to
people.
tell Cleric to fuck off for doing 30k DPS. So yeah, that's very nice, because the only DPS meter options we have right now is like either through LagoFast or the Chinese one, which both are paywalled. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm hoping people will learn more about the stats and how everything works, and there will be more guides for the community for the global launch. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully we have some sort of like my AION situation as well, where, you know, we can upload our DPS and maybe compare logs and shit. That would be excellent as well. Looking forward to something like that coming out in the future as well. So yeah, thanks again for coming tonight.
Okay.
Thanks for everyone in chat participating and watching as well. And that's just about gonna wrap it up. So